Welcome, everybody. If your cell phone is set for ring, if you could silence it with me. Welcome, everyone, to the July 16th, 2025 regularly scheduled board meeting for the Monterey Peninsula Airport District. Denise, can we have roll call, please?
Present.
Director Gagliardi.
Here.
Director Pick is absent. Director Leffel. Here. Chair Miller.
Here. Director Pick is out of the country on business and is an excused absence. Pledge of Allegiance. John, can you help us out? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Communications and announcements. Does any board member have an announcement they'd like to make? Okay, hearing none. How about staff? Anything to let us know?
Just one I wanted to bring to your attention, and I put it in the email that I had sent over, but on September 18th, the Monterey Peninsula Chamber of Commerce and the Monterey County Film Commission are going to do a reception here for the film art. So
What
September
day?
18th.
Is that at 5 o'clock?
I don't have the time exactly, but I would assume about that time. As
Okay,
soon as we have the invitation, we will share it.
18th?
September 18th.
okay.
Correct.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, any member of the public wishing to make a statement at this time can do so. You have 3 minutes. It has to be something that is not going to be heard later on the agenda and something that falls under our jurisdiction. Does any member of the public wish to speak at this time? Nobody in the chambers. How about joining us virtually? If so, raise your hand if you'd like to speak.
We have one.
We have one Samsung SM-N and then a bunch of numbers.
Okay, Mr. Sampson, if you can please identify yourself with your name and the city you reside, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning. I live in Seaside. My name is Sarah Hunter, and I would respectfully request that these board meetings be held at a reasonable hour for more members of our community to attend, such as maybe 6 o'clock at night rather than 8 a.m. in the morning on a work day, or maybe on a weekend at noon. Thank you.
Thank you. Any member of the public joining us remotely wishing to speak, raise your hand.
That one.
Okay. Consent agenda. Consent agenda consists of those items which are routine in nature and comes with a staff recommendation and has been prepared. One motion will cover all items on the consent agenda. Does any member of the board wish to pull a item on the consent agenda?
I do. I'd like to pull number 4 and number 6.
4 and 6, okay. Does any member of the public wish to pull an item off the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, I see no hands.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve the consent agendas items 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7.
I'll second.
Sorry, sir.
John Gagliardi.
do we have a roll call, please?
Director Amati.
Aye.
Director Gagliardi.
Aye.
Director Leffel.
Yes.
Chair Miller.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, it passes. Deferred consent, why don't we start with number 4?
I would just like to add myself to that. And the same thing with number 6. Does anybody else want to add on to these while we're got them open for approvals?
Here we go. No. No.
Okay. CSDA is a good conference. They do a lot of the mandated training you can take and get that covered. They have a lot of relevant information, and they seem to alternate every year. They're up here in Monterey. I always make it a point to attend when they're in town.
And they said last night that we have 10 days to still get the early bird
That's right. So,
price.
yeah,
So,
it's very timely, so we do want to get that lower rate.
so,
Okay,
so I would move that we approve items number 4 and number 6 with the additions.
And Mr. Chair, if I could just correct one item. It does say in item number 6 that the date of the airport management short course is February 1 to 4, 2025. That should be 2026.
There you go.
okay. Yeah, that's good catch.
Okay, and I'll accept that in my motion.
Second.
Okay,
I'll accept the second.
okay. We have a roll call, please?
Director Amati,
Aye.
Director Gagliardi,
Aye.
Director Leffel,
Yes.
Chair Miller.
Yes. Okay, regular agenda items. Pass to print, item number G1. Who is going to start off with this
I'll go ahead and take that, Mr. Chair.
one? Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and board members. As we have discussed previously, ordinances 308, 309, and 310 purport to limit or restrict certain activities at the airport. Ordinance 308 purports to limit the hours of operation of the airport, but does contain exceptions for emergency aircraft and all aircraft that meet the lowest takeoff and landing levels of Amendment 8 to Federal Air Regulation 36. Ordinance 309 purports to regulate the altitude of aircraft under various modes or components of flight, like turns while departing the pattern, flying in the pattern, overflight of terrain within 5 miles to the north or south of the airport. And Ordinance 310 attempts to establish regulations related to touch and go and stop and go operations by aircraft at the Monterey Airport. As we presented to the Air Services and Community Relations Committee, I'm forgetting the whole name of that at the moment, but as we presented, there is a PowerPoint presentation that is attached to this agenda item that outlines specifically why each one is either ineffective or superseded by federal law, or problematic for another reason. But I want to get into two things. Number one, I do have an amendment to the ordinance that was published in the agenda, and the amendment is at the end of section 5, the CEQA exemption, and it adds the phrase, "and because the repeal is not a project pursuant to CEQA guidelines." Now, we'll go over that in just a minute, but I want to highlight that for the members of the public. We have copies here, and if you are online, I'll repeat that again so you can take note of it. At the end of section 5, CEQA exemption, right after where it says have never been enforced by MPAD, we added comma, and because the repeal is not a project pursuant to CEQA guidelines. And again, we'll go over that in just a minute, and then I'll have another document for you in just a moment. But the reason why these are ineffective, and I want to hit just a few of the highlights here. The reason why this is ineffective is because as mentioned again, in the PowerPoint presentation, each one of these ordinances has a flaw for some reason. For example, I'll take just as an example, Ordinance 308. Ordinance 308 purports to close down the airport during certain hours, but it says it's exempt for emergency aircraft or any aircraft that complies with Amendment 8 to Federal Air Regulations 36. As I presented to the Air Services Committee, and I think I mentioned it in this group as well, I went through every airline that services this airport, every single commercial plane that can come to this airport by any of the providers comply with those noise levels. Therefore, by its very inclusion in the ordinance, there is no closure of the airport because, again, in 1978, airplanes were a lot noisier than they are today. And as these improvements have been made in engine noise and technology, they're getting quieter. And so every airplane complies with the maximum decibel level required under Amendment 8 to FAR 36. Every one of them. And by the way, that includes private planes as well. I went and I looked at. I took a day and just went through every airplane that landed that I could see on flight radar. They all comply with the noise restrictions. And so now there again, each one of them has several flaws, and I'm going to incorporate into this discussion. I don't necessarily want to go through all of the reasons, but in the PowerPoint presentation, it does go ordinance by ordinance, line by line, paragraph by paragraph, why each one is ineffective. But I want to get to, and by the way, these ordinances have never been enforced by the airport. And in fact, one of them says it won't even become effective until 30 days after it's been submitted to the FAA. And the FAA gives their approval. We just don't have that. It hasn't happened. And so anyway, I do want to address a couple of items. We did receive a written letter from.
Scott,
Yeah.
I just want to interrupt a minute. There are only two people on that committee. One isn't even here. So the rest of us have not seen this presentation.
So I can go through it.
And also there may be people from the public that haven't seen it. Would you mind,
No, thank you. I was gonna ask that. Yeah.
instead of
'Cause
kind of
this is a-
picking at pieces, if we just had the whole,
I was actually on the impression, because that is a very good PowerPoint presentation that you gave to the committee, and I thought we were gonna go through it.
Sure, happy to. I'll do it. And again, I can do that on the fly because I created this.
Yeah, exactly. Okay,
So-
good. Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Um,
Chair Leffel, for that.
Yeah, let's do this. Let me log in and then I'll share this PowerPoint so that people at home can see it as well.
thank you.
Let me.
Sorry, I didn't want to throw you off your
No, that's okay.
pace, but
That is totally okay. This is.
I actually think it's organized and it's clean, and I think that it explains exactly what you're talking about, and it does it in a really accessible way.
Okay. Just give me a moment. I'm logging in now. Okay. Let me share my screen here. Okay. Actually, let me do one better because I've got the PowerPoint presentation here itself, and then it'll take up the full screen instead of just most of the screen. So those at home will be able to see it with more clarity. go. Okay. Okay, so this is the presentation that was given to the Air Carrier Service Marketing and Community Relations Committee meeting on May 12th. I go through all of the ordinances, 308, 309, and 310, give a brief summary of them. The board passed ordinance 308 on January 10 of 1979 and 309 and 310 on December 13 of 1978. I went back and verified those dates because you see the ordinance numbers are a little bit out of order. 308 was one that was actually on the December agenda and then came back at the July agenda with some modifications to it. Ordinance 308 purports to limit the hours of operation of the Monterey Regional Airport, but it contains exceptions for emergency aircraft, military aircraft, and all aircraft that meet the lowest takeoff and landing levels of Amendment 8 to FAR 36, as well as some runway use requirements. Ordinance 309 purports to regulate the altitude of aircraft under various components of flight, like turns while departing the pattern, flying in the pattern, overflight of terrain within 5 miles to the north or south of the airport. And Ordinance 310 attempts to establish regulations related to touch and go and stop and go operations by aircraft at the Monterey Regional Airport. I'm going to go in reverse order because the last one needs more explanation. So I'm going to go in reverse order. Ordinance 310, sections 3, 4, and 5. And again, Ordinance 310 is in the packet. It attempts to prohibit touch and go operations and stop and go operations during various hours on weekdays, weekends, and holidays. Section 6 attempts to limit the number of touch and go operations and stop and go operations to 4 within a 2-hour period. And then Section 9 contains fine, penalties, and other provisions that would ban the use of the airport to anyone who has violated the above provisions for a period of 3 years. So Ordinance 310 appears to never have been enforced by the airport. We can't find any directive or any citations that have been issued or any enforcement at all in any of the documents that we've looked through. It just has never been enforced. There are some issues with the language of the ordinance. For a provision of an ordinance that restricts certain behavior, for it to be valid and enforceable, it must have a justification that connects the activity being restricted with the desired outcome. And what that means is, for example, this one purports to limit touch and go operations and stop and go operations, but there's no connection between those activities and noise at the airport. Now, some would say, well, it's axiomatic. There has to be. Well, actually, for it to be valid, you have to actually have that connection in the ordinance. You've got to make that connection. Now, there is no evidence in the ordinance that connects those two things. There's no discussion of decibel levels, cumulative noise levels, or anything related to that. There's no reference to a study that was done showing an impact. So given these lack of studies or evidence adopted by the board or approved by the board connecting the restrictions to the overall noise reductions, I think these are very likely unenforceable for this reason alone. There are other reasons, and let me get to those, but this is one that makes that really problematic. The greatest concern with this ordinance is that it contains provisions in section 8 and 9 that restrict the right to use the airport and impose fines, penalties, and possible ban from using the airport for violations. Well, in 1981, in Santa Monica Airport Association versus City of Santa Monica, the district court did find, however, that the categorical ban on all jet aircraft and the penalty statute, and this is important, and the penalty statute violated equal protection and commerce clauses of the U.S. Constitution. You have that same issue here. I'm sorry, let me back up. Those provisions that restrict the right to use the airport and the issuance of penalties violate the equal protection and commerce clauses as held by the court in the city of Santa Monica. The ordinance contains a severability clause. Is that audio?
That was video, but yeah.
Okay. Okay. So under the ordinance drafting statutes in California, if an ordinance contains a severability clause and a part of it is found to be unconstitutional, then the court can say, well, we'll sever that and take that out and consider it not part of the ordinance, but the rest of it can remain standing. In Ordinance 310, there is no severability clause. So if any provision is found to violate the Constitution, the whole thing either lives or dies by that provision. The California Supreme Court held the rule is well settled that where such a severability clause is included, the valid portion will be upheld if the remaining portion is severable and constitutes a completely operative expression of legislative intent. The reverse of that, also the reverse implication of that is also that where there is no severability clause, the entire ordinance is invalid. Because it contains unconstitutional provisions, it falls under the umbrella of Santa Monica Airport Association case and is an unconstitutional provision. And again, we believe staff believes it's unconstitutional. Now, Section 9 of the ordinance also contains a restriction. This violates various grant assurances between the airport and the FAA that were in existence at the time. The grant assurances were in existence at the time. The compliance level, or I'm sorry, the compliance guidance letter that it references from 2020, but these restrictions were in place under the grant assurances at the time. All proposed closing of airport access must be approved in advance by the FAA. You simply can't have a closure of the airport or a restriction on that without FAA's approval. Grant Assurance 19 further requires that airport sponsors will not cause or permit any activity or action on the airport that would interfere with its use for airport purposes, and that includes structures and operational areas. Any questions on Ordinance 310 before we go to 309?
I'm going to take it up to the public.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, yeah, sure.
Okay, yeah, normally we don't separate and when you're handling everything as one, but because this is a little technical,
Sure.
we'll do that. No member of the board has any questions about 309. Does any member of the public have any questions, 310? Does any member of the public have any comment or questions specific to 310?
I would, Mr. Chair, I would say questions, not comments. Comments will come in the
Okay.
public comment.
Any
on-
questions about ordinance 310?
Okay,
Any member of the attending virtually, raise your hand if you have a question.
and Mr. Chair, I see no hands.
Okay,
Okay.
go on to 309.
Ordinance 309, Section 1 attempts to restrict the plane from turning until it has reached a certain altitude after takeoff. Section 2 and 3 purport to limit the minimum altitude for planes within 5 miles to the north and 5 miles to the south of the center line of runway 10-28, which is now 10 right and 28 left. Sections 4, 5, and 6 contain provisions that issues fines and penalties, including banning a pilot from using the airport for 3 years. Ordinance 309, just like 310 that we discussed, appears to never have been forced by the airport. We can find no evidence that it has ever been enforced or that any citations or penalties or fines have been issued. So one of the problems with this one is that 49 USC 40301A provides, and it's quoted there, the United States government has exclusive sovereignty of airspace of the United States. An airport operator's attempt, and airport operator means this board or this body, an airport operator's attempt to limit altitudes at which planes can fly is squarely contrary to federal law. Congress has plenary authority over the navigable airspace, and they have charged the FAA with administering that airspace in the public interest as necessary to ensure the safety of aircraft and its efficient use. So this ordinance is void as a result of its direct conflict with federal law. To say, I have seldom seen in regulations something as concrete as this statement that says the United States government has exclusive sovereignty of airspace. You just don't find language that firm and that concrete. which is good to see here. So much like Ordinance 310, Ordinance 309 contains similar provisions related to penalties, fines, and a potential ban from the airport, which violates the grant assurances. And again, I copied these last two bullet points from Ordinance 310. They are the same. Any proposed closing of airport access must be approved in advance by the FAA. Grant Assurance 19 requires airport sponsors will not cause or permit any activity or action that would interfere with its use for airport purposes. I will note one of the things that is interesting. If we go back to the language of the ordinance itself, it makes these minimum altitude restrictions 5 miles to the north and 5 miles to the south. Interestingly enough, it has no restriction on the east or the west side, which means by a literal reading of the ordinance that it would navigate all the way around the globe, which is well beyond the authority of the airport. Now, I use that as an extreme example. We could say, well, it's only limited to the airspace, over the district boundaries of the airport. Okay, that would be, I think, somewhat logical, but still, it regulates airspace. And airspace is the exclusive sovereignty of the U.S. government. And so Ordinance 9, again, similar to 310, is invalid because it squarely conflicts with federal law. Ordinance 308 is a little bit more lengthy of a discussion. It closes the airport to all aircraft operations during certain nighttime hours with the exception of emergency operations, military aircraft, and operations which meet the lowest takeoff and landing levels of Amendment 8 to FAR 36, and to operations scheduled by commercial carriers which have been delayed due to equipment, weather, or other operational problems. Similar to Ordinance 309 and 310, this ordinance contains provisions that issues fines and penalties, including banning a pilot from using the airport for up to 3 years. This ordinance also attempts to mandate landings and takeoff to a certain runway and a runway direction during nighttime hours. Unlike ordinances 309 and 310, Section 4 of this ordinance contains a provision that this ordinance shall be effective. We're going to fix the microphone here. Did it go back? Echo canceling? Okay. Okay. So this is important because we cannot find any evidence that it has been sent to the FAA, nor that the FAA has approved it for implementation. Or even that it was considered by the FAA. We have no records related to this whatsoever. Ordinance 308 appears to never have been enforced by the airport, much like 309 and 310. In addition, Ordinance 308 contains similar provision related to penalties, which violates the grant assurances between the airport and the FAA. Again, same argument with 309 and 310. Those provisions that issue those fines come under the umbrella of the Santa Monica Airport Association versus City of Santa Monica, and are impermissible. It violates the Equal Protection Clause. There is no severance clause in any of these three ordinances. Even if we look all of these infirmities with the Ordinance 308, and this is what I was referencing very briefly, Section 1 provides an exception for aircraft that meet the lowest takeoff and landing levels of Amendment 8 to FAR 36. I've got a copy of Amendment 8 to FAR 36, and I'll tell you that I quote from it directly in the upcoming slides. For anyone that would like a copy, I'm happy to provide a copy. But the FAA revised paragraph C36 on page 8731 of that document relates to noise levels. And again, I'll pull it up here in just a moment. I'm going to go through the slides, and then I'll pull it up and I'll show you where that is in that document. The then enacted, and it should say stage 3, not state 3, stage 3 noise levels were as follows for takeoff. And it breaks it down by the number of engines that the plane has. If it's more than 3 engines, then these are the 106 EPNDB is for maximum weights up to 850,000 pounds or more. And it drops down to 89 EPNDB for maximum weights of 44,673 pounds or less. I'll get into what EPNDB means in just a moment. For airplanes with 3 engines, it goes from 104 down to 89. And for airplanes with fewer than 3 engines, it goes from 101 EPNDB down to 89. 89 is the lowest level for these aircraft. Now, so this is related to these 3 right here are related to takeoff procedures. Okay, it's important. It breaks down by takeoff, sideline procedures, and approach procedures. This is during takeoff. 89 is the lowest level for the lightest aircraft. Stage 3 noise levels for a sideline, meaning planes that are in the pattern or measured. And we'll get into how this is measured in just a moment. There's a slide on this. But regardless of the number of engines, 103 EPNDB is the maximum, and it's reduced by 2.56 EPNDB per halving of the weight down to 94. So 94 is the lowest level for the lightest aircraft. And for the approach procedures, when airplanes are approaching, regardless of the number of engines, 105 EPNDB is the maximum, and it drops down to 98 EPNDB for maximum weights of 77,200 pounds or less. Now, what is EPNDB? It is the effective perceived noise in decibel levels, or the effective perceived noise level. More recently, the FAA uses the EPNL acronym or shortening of effective perceived noise level, but EPNDB and effective perceived noise level are synonymous. It is a measure of relative noisiness of an individual aircraft in a pass-by event. It's used for aircraft noise certification, and it applies to individual aircraft and aircraft types. So every aircraft type, when it's certified by the FAA, must have a published EPNDB. Have to have it. The FAA has issued guidelines for how to measure each type of these activities, and here is how they measure it. For a takeoff reference, I got to put my glasses on here. For a takeoff reference, the reference point is 6,500 meters takes off. And at 6,500 meters forward of that takeoff point, that's where you measure the decibel level for takeoff. For a sideline reference, you would put the equipment at one beyond the center to measure the noise at that point. And for approach levels, you would go 2,000 meters the noise leveling or the noise measuring equipment there and measure each individual aircraft as it goes by. Yes. When they ask you certification for the airplane, they have to provide those numbers. What did the studies show as to how loud it is? In looking at all the airlines that fly into Monterey, all aircraft that all have aircraft levels that are below the lowest levels of EPNDB published in Amendment 8 to FAR 36. They're all lower than the maximum standard for the lightest aircraft with the lowest decibel levels. They're all below that. I went through every airline that services the airport, and I went through every airplane that airline uses, whether or not they come here to the Monterey Airport, because you may get a diversion, you may get some. So I analyzed every aircraft, even though they may not serve this airport. Okay. American Airlines has an A319-100, A320-200, A321. And again, I list them all here. I'm not going to go through them all. SkyWest utilizes the CRJ. several different variants. Now, by the way, I also looked at Hawaiian Airlines because Hawaiian and Alaska have just merged. But again, the aircraft that are servicing Hawaiian Airlines are not the ones that are flying in here. The branded planes are all Alaska 737s. United has a long list, including up to, you know, a lot of 737s, a lot of Airbus A3, 319, 320, 321, different variants of that. Seven and a 787. Now, I've never seen a 787 or a 777 come here. Yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't even look at it. I just figured if they fly it, I want to know what the numbers are, right? Allegiant flies Airbuses, and they're now starting to transition to 737 as well. Sun Country flies 737s, and JSX flies Embraer 135s and 145s. Every single one of those, if you look at FAA Advisory Circular 36-3H, every aircraft is below the threshold, below the lowest threshold required by Amendment 8 to FAR 36. So even if this ordinance were left in place, it's totally ineffective because it doesn't restrict any aircraft from coming in here at any hour of the day. Even again, if we step over the legal infirmities of it, it simply doesn't have any teeth to it because planes have gotten quieter over the years. Now, the argument that, well, then we should be sliding that scale forward, that's a great argument, but you have to do that by ordinance. You can only change an ordinance by amending it or repealing it. And so if the board wanted to slide that scale forward, it would have to amend this ordinance. It's never been amended. And therefore the 1978 standards are what we have to go by. Every airplane that flies in is compliant with that. So each of these three ordinances are invalid, unconstitutional, or are ineffective. And it's my recommendation that these ordinances be repealed for those reasons, because leaving an invalid, ineffective, or unconstitutional ordinance is just not a policy of good governance. Please.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, if I could ask a question on that last slide. Is it safe to
Go ahead.
assume,
On this one?
is it safe to assume then that all of the general aviation aircraft as well are also below?
Yes.
Wouldn't meet the level of the
That is
aircraft that are operated by the airlines?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that is correct. The general aviation aircraft that flies in and out is compliant. I'm not going to say you couldn't have some modification that some pilot might make by putting a different engine on or by taking some equipment off, like a muffler or something that wouldn't cause that to be louder. But again, we go by the certifications of the aircraft when it rolls off the manufacturer's line. That certification is what we have to use. Again, I can't tell you about any individual aircraft. I don't have any knowledge of that. I've never put equipment out. I just tell you, I'm looking at how the FAA requires us to look at it, and that's what I've presented here.
There are experimentals like P-51s that fly.
Yeah.
They're not a certified aircraft. They're experimental, but they're highly restricted. You can't just go fly them like a GA. They're only supposed to be flown as a they take them to air shows.
Like a ceremonial
Yeah,
kind of thing.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a couple questions. So a couple planes that come in, the old military planes, and they offer rides,
Yep.
people can sign up. Would those be in violation of this?
So I don't believe so, because even if they are louder than that, they don't do those in the hours that are restricted by the ordinance. So remember, during the day, anything can fly in, as loud as it is, doesn't matter. This was only during those nighttime hours they wanted to restrict them, right?
Okay.
And during certain hours. I guess I could maybe envision a scenario where someone wanted to do.
I'm not trying to, what if, I'm just asking a question because that's popular with the public
Yeah.
when that comes in. So just would it,
Yeah, during the daytime when those, and I think I'm gonna step out on a limb here. The only ones I have seen are during the daytime.
Okay. And then military is exempt from all of this.
Military is exempt.
And that's where
emergency
we get the
aircraft is
most
exempt.
of the noise
Yep.
complaints.
And commercial is exempt also if they have mechanical, and it's interesting that it includes or operational issues. Well, I can tell you, operational, does that mean a flight crew didn't show up and they had to bring one in from somewhere else? I think so. And I think the airline would say, well, that's an operational issue. That's part of their operations. So I think what you have there is there literally is, even if it somehow violated some of the decibel levels, there's no restriction on commercial aircraft really, as it relates, because they can come in late whenever they want.
So if I read this correctly, what's that thing called? No Tim or something?
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
notice.
Okay, so that is when we petition FAA to say that we're going to close the runway because we're doing construction, or we had a plane that didn't put down its landing gear
Right.
or whatever. That's a no Tim because we had something that we are asking to close it. But that is the only reason then that we would be allowed to close our airport. Is that correct?
I'm happy. Yeah. So what happens is if you want to close the airport for some kind of construction or some kind of specific event, you would request the FAA for permission to close it. Once they say, yes, you may close it during these hours or during this period of time, then the airport would issue the NOTAM, which goes out to all the pilots in all of the various formats and software, letting the pilots know it's a notice to airmen of some issue at the airport.
I would add or caveat that typically when we're doing construction, we're not closing the airport. We're closing our runway, which then allows for helicopter access for emergencies, life flight, etc. So we are very specific about what we do. We're doing construction, that we are not impacting those emergency procedures, especially for helicopter service.
So it's still open
It's open for
24
them
hours.
for helicopter service.
Okay.
Especially. for
Okay.
Construction.
Not being a pilot, I'm just trying to get my,
Yeah, those are also public.
Things that when you make your flight, then you're gonna go to a place. The note,
So it'll be yellow. This will go into effect tomorrow, you know, and then when it's red, it's in effect. So it's published long before, like days before.
okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood that.
Now, I wanted to share one more thing. The ordinance 308 incorporates the noise standards from Amendment 8 to FAR 36. This document from the Federal Register, Thursday, March 2nd of 1978, is where that is found. Now, it's more than 9,000 pages. I have eliminated the irrelevant pages from it. But as you can see down here, down near the bottom, it says the second one from the bottom, aircraft noise standards. It starts on page 8722 and it goes to 8731. There are two different parts to it there. And again, I just include the contents to show exactly what it's got. And then this is the cover page that begins the portion that we're talking about. Here are the rules and regulations, and I'm going to get to the very end where it talks about noise limits. Because really what it's doing is it's analyzing, this is amendment number 8. It analyzes the previous amendments and why this amendment is coming into play. And then I believe it's on page 11 that I have here. Okay. Right here at the bottom in the left-hand column, it says noise measuring point and test requirements. That tells you where. And then Okay, and then here it is. In the middle column, near the bottom, and again, I apologize for how small. 6.7 in the heading, they're making acoustical changes to stage 2 airplanes, stage 3 airplanes. And it says here, this is what I directly quoted in the PowerPoint slide. So I won't go through it here because it's in the PowerPoint, but I did want to reference it. This is where it came from. And the reason why I also brought this up is because it actually took me a fair number of hours to find this. It's not easily accessible. So I wanted it to be available for you, just so you know, this is what I'm quoting from. I'm quoting from the Federal Register. This is Amendment 8 to FAR 36. So, to be.
And there have been no amendments to that that would change any.
Amendment 8, because again, that's what was codified in the ordinance. So any subsequent amendments by the FAA related to noise would not be applicable here at the airport because that's what was incorporated.
Okay. I have one more question. While we're cleaning this up, because when all of this happened, there were not drones and there were not light shows.
Right.
And we've had requests for light shows at the end of our runway at the fairgrounds, which we declined. And also more and more people are being drone certified and are flying them around. For instance, the firework activity in some of our neighboring communities used drones to try to find out where the illegal activity was. So is there anything that's changed with the federal guidelines that we should be looking at while we're cleaning all this up, that we should also make a policy on that would say, because when the fireworks, was it 2 years ago with the car show at the end of the runway? I mean, that became a big come up multiple times.
Sure.
And I don't know that we had anything in our policy that we could point to that said that we're prohibiting it.
So you don't need to have anything in your policies because the FAA has very specific regulations already in place.
Airspeed.
And I'll point to Ordinance 308 as the reason why you don't want to have that policy.
Okay.
If you say, we're incorporating the drone regulations from July 16, 2025 that are then in effect. If the FAA makes changes to them after that, they don't change at the airport because you've got that policy in place or that ordinance in place. That's one of the issues with 308 is it incorporates a hard and fast number of the amendment. And so the FAA has significant regulations related to drones, airport closures, fireworks within a certain radius of the airport. They've got all kinds of that stuff. So when that request came about, we just had to look at one place at the FAA regulations and say, this is not permitted. Here are the guidelines. And they're totally effective here at the airport.
Okay. So, and drones also. I
Drones.
mean, I know there's a big policy on that and that our neighboring law enforcement people have been schooled in it, but I don't know that the general public has. And I mean, daily I see beautiful photographs of things that people are taking with drones. So I just didn't know if this is a time to put something in place with all of that.
Yeah, I would actually recommend you not. I would
Okay.
recommend you let the FAA do that because then you can enforce whatever the FAA and whenever they change their standards, then your standard automatically changes because you're riding their coattails.
Would it be prudent to say that the activity is our activity follows the FAA guidelines just and put it on our website so that someone can
We do
look
have
at
that.
it?
Yeah. We have and we connect to FAA's guidance. So it is on our website and it does connect and send people to the FAA's guidance letters.
And does it
etc.
call those things out in particular or is it just
No, it calls
overall?
them out.
Okay.
Now, let me, before we get into comments or questions, let me continue for just a moment. You all received by email a letter from Nancy Runyon on behalf of the Monterey Fly Safe Coalition.
Scott, I'm so sorry. Chair, are we taking questions on the presentation part? Because we had done that for 310. Are we gonna pause and do questions from us?
Yeah, we
from the
can
public?
do, why don't we do 3.9 and 3.8 since you lumped them both together? So let's go to John.
No question.
Okay. So Jonathan, do you have a question?
I do. So in your presentation, you called out specific infirmities in each of the ordinances.
Yes.
Is there a way in which this body could craft ordinances that would achieve the desired outcomes from those, establishing a curfew, restricting touch and go, the flight paths and the altitudes? Is there a way in which this body, should it choose to, and it desired to, establish ordinances that would have the same effect as the desired effect from 308, 309, and 310?
It would not be possible because of and I'll pull it back up, but because of the statute, the federal statute that says that the United States has exclusive sovereignty over the airspace, you would not be able to do that. And again, anything that would involve an airport closure must be pre-approved by the FAA.
So even if we were to, what I'm hearing is that even if we were to fix all of those infirmities that you call out specifically in this presentation, that the ordinances would not be constitutional because they're superseded by this federal government sovereignty.
That is correct.
That was my question. Thank you.
Okay.
And we might have a hand in the audience. I don't know if they're.
Yeah, I noticed that. I just wanted to go through the board first. Scott, what about the Airport Noise and Capacity Act, Aircraft Noise and Capacity Act that Congress passed? That specifically prohibits us from passing any ordinance, right?
It does. It does. Now I'll tell you the ANCA, or the Aircraft Noise and Capacity Act, was passed in 1990. And from that point forward, it says airports may not enact any regulations related to airport closure or any of those kinds of things. It was really done in response to a lot of airports that were putting in flight restrictions and all kinds of things. Like, for example, John Wayne Airport at Orange County Airport.
Yeah.
You have to do what I'll call a maximum performance takeoff, and then once it gets to a certain level, once it gets to a certain altitude, the plane levels off and the engines pull back, or the pilots pull the engines back, and it sort of glides on the minimum necessary power until it gets over the ocean, and then they power up the engines again. That was in place before, and so it was allowed to stay. ANCA does incorporate any ordinances or any rules or regulations that were in place at the time of its passage could remain in effect, but that doesn't fix the infirmities of 308, 309, and 310, unfortunately. And because they're unconstitutional, you can't go back and now make them and correct their infirmities. It isn't, again, it's not possible.
Didn't we submit these ordinances to FAA?
We don't have we cannot find any record that they were submitted to the FAA.
Okay.
And I'll put it that way, because when you're looking for something, of some evidence, when you find it, you can say, oh, conclusively, yeah, hey, here it is. I know for sure we did, because here's the letter where we sent it. We can't find any correspondence. Does that mean it doesn't exist? I don't know. But at a minimum, because that one ordinance did say that it must be approved by the FAA, we don't have any evidence that it was sent to them, that they considered it, or that they approved it. And if they were going to consider it, they would let us know by mail. And if they were going to approve it, they would let us know by mail as well. And there's just there's no documentation of that.
Well, for those airports that had approved procedures, the FAA publishes those, don't they? They don't leave it up to the air.
Airports publish them in all of the AirNav databases and FlightAware and ForeFlight and all of the tools that pilots utilize. The airports themselves are the ones that put their information in there, and then it goes to everybody.
Okay. Without FAA approval or?
Well, I don't want to say without FAA approval, because the FAA, for example, for instrument flight, the takeoff regulations for John Wayne, as I use as an example, for instrument flight incorporate those restrictions
It's a departure procedure.
as a departure procedure. So the FAA has approved some of them. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we have a member of the public, we have two members of the public that would like to, so we are in question asking mode right now, not comment. Let's go first with Samsung. I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but if you could please repeat your name and where you live, the city you live in, and your question, please.
Thank you. I have two very quick questions for the board, Sarah Hunter and Seaside. Number one, that beautiful report by Mr. Huber, is the board considering that an official noise study on the airport by this attorney?
Well, we're not answering questions, but I'll turn it over
Okay.
to our attorney.
Yeah, this is not an official noise study. This is an analysis of the FAA guidelines in conjunction with the noise studies that were published by the aircraft manufacturers. So we didn't do any noise studies. We just looked at the data that the aircraft manufacturers were required to give to the FAA, and in conjunction looking at it in comparison to Amendment 8 to FAR 36.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My second question is, with this presentation, is the goal of the board, if this repeal of these three ordinances were to actually happen, would one of the effects be that all of the noise abatement guidelines would be removed from the airport website?
Mr. Chair, let me answer that question. The
Yes.
answer is no. It would not be removed from the website. In fact, the next item on the agenda is actually a formal incorporation of those guidelines. And so by resolution, the next item on the agenda would be a formal incorporation of requests and guidelines and asks by the airport of pilot of the flying community. And so that's where those would be incorporated. It would not be removed from the website. In fact, it would be updated, but it would not be removed from the website.
So basically, removing the ordinances would not impact the guidelines. And in fact, Mr. Huber has given the board a lot of work to actually improve those noise guidelines. So we appreciate all your good work, Mr. Huber. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Runyon, your hand was up?
Please call me Nancy. I've been divorced for 40 years happily.
Okay,
I'm
Nancy,
Nancy
sorry.
Runyon, and I'm asking this for myself today. Director Amati's question was a good one, because it does make a difference to keep these ordinances and amend them, because if you have grandfathered in ordinances that have things like curfews, even if they're voluntary, they are approved through the ANCA. And Mr. Huber must have forgotten that the letter that he sent to us of November 24th, 1986 from the FAA specifically refers to a lot of the sections of all three of these ordinances, because they were originally part of Resolution 715. All three of these ordinances were. So Mr. Huber, could you please check that letter again, because it specifically approves the curfew as voluntary. And having a voluntary curfew means a lot to the public, because it'll tell the pilots, oh, maybe we should be more careful here and not fly over people when they're trying to sleep. Like last 2 nights, I've had flights over off after midnight. And this morning I had them, you know, starting at 7 or maybe even earlier, I think, but yesterday. So what happened to that 1986 letter that you sent to me, Mr. Huber, months ago, as your proof that these were ineffective, but they actually state otherwise?
What was the date of that letter again?
November 24th, 1986, you sent it to me. It discusses almost all of the provisions in all 3 of these ordinances. So it's proof that the FAA did receive them. And they're talking about all of them. And some of them are cited in our letter to you. And because these ordinances could be grandfathered in, they should not be repealed. They should be modified to protect the public.
So
You sent that to me with my FOIA request.
the Aircraft Noise and Capacity Act prohibits any modification of regulations without
Your
modify.
sound is cutting in and out. I cannot hear everything that you say. I just did not hear your last sentence.
Okay. Well, are we good now? Okay. We're having some technical issues, but I think we've got it. Okay. I think we've got it taken care of. So I will squarely disagree with that statement. The Airport Noise and Capacity Act prohibits any future modifications to regulations that are in place. The fact that we have these voluntary, the fact that we're asking that these be voluntary, these restrictions be voluntary, flies in the face of all 3 ordinances. The ordinances are not voluntary at all. They are mandatory, and they include penalties and fines. That's why the next item is so important. And that's where the next item really has the desire of the airport to the pilot community and to the flying community. Please respect these requests. Please, you can't jam it down their throat and force them to. But I will tell you, generally speaking, the pilot community is very willing to comply with this, barring some emergency or something that comes in like that. But I simply don't agree that ANCA allows you to modify these ordinances.
But there was a letter from FAA recognizing some of our desires as a voluntary program, correct?
I believe so. Yes. And again, that's what was referenced by Ms. Nancy in her comment about the FAA recognizes they're voluntary.
Right.
That doesn't prove that the ordinances were sent. And the reason why that doesn't prove that is because the ordinances are not voluntary.
Yes.
They are mandatory with fines and penalties. So now, had the letter said these ordinances are not okay unless they're voluntary, that would be evidence that they were sent, but they didn't say that. Yeah. And so we don't have any documentary evidence that these were ever enforced or ever even considered by the FAA. I do want to address, if I can, before we go to comments, Mr. Chair, I do want to address Ms. Runyon's letter, because she makes references to the letter dated July 14, 2025. It was sent to all of you by email, and we do have printed copies for you on the dais. She references CEQA and environmental regulations and environmental requirements for studies and all of that. And I simply don't agree. I think she's misreading CEQA. Number one, and it says this in the ordinance to repeal these 3 ordinances. Number one, this is not a project under the CEQA guidelines. CEQA guidelines, section 15.378, subsection B5. It says a project does not include, quote, organizational or administrative duties of governments that will not result in direct or indirect physical changes to the environment. because these ordinances have never been enforced, you will not have any changes in the environment, in the noise levels. It will remain the same. So it simply doesn't constitute a project. There are some cases related to ordinances where CEQA is implicated, and almost all of them are for things like zoning ordinances, housing and construction regulations, overlay zones, general plan amendments, things like that that have to be passed by ordinances. This type of ordinance is not implicated under CEQA at all. It is not a project under CEQA, number one. Number two, even if you were to determine it is a project, it is exempt under CEQA regulation 15061, subsection B3, which says a project is exempt from CEQA if where it can be seen with certainty that there is no possibility that the activity in question may have a significant effect on the environment. Again, you've got these regulations that have never been enforced. By repealing them, you will not be increasing noise whatsoever. You just won't. Aircraft that are coming in and they're leaving when they leave. And your current regulations have never been enforced. So therefore, a repeal of a never enforced ordinance cannot possibly have an impact. It just can't. The other thing I want to reference is there are some other categorical exemptions, but those are listed in the ordinance itself. No, I think that's it. This is what I wanted to reference. I'm sorry. On page 2, it's sort of the inset paragraph that says, under state of California's records retention schedule, ordinances are permanent records representing the policy choices of prior boards. That is a correct statement, but its application to this repeal is in error. What this requires, this is under the document retention schedule. We will not delete and forever, destroy copies of Ordinance 308, 309, and 310. We will keep copies of them, but they can be repealed, and we'll keep a copy of the ordinance that repeals them. To say that an ordinance cannot be repealed because of the records retention schedule is just an incorrect statement.
Okay. Nancy, we see multiple hands up. We're not going to do a discussion at this point. I'll give you a chance to make comment here in a moment. Anything else from the board, question-wise?
No.
Scott, do you have anything you wanted to add before I open up to public comment?
Nothing, sir.
Okay. Okay, any member of the public present here in the chambers wishing to make a statement?
Oh, actually, Mr. Chair, yes, I do. I apologize. Yes, I do. I do want to show, so the record is complete. I do want to show the amendment that was made to the ordinance that, again, copies are here, but for those that are coming in remotely, I do want to show what that change is so they can see it. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, nothing has changed on the first page. On the second page, this highlighted language in yellow, and let me expand it a little bit so people can see it. This highlighted language in yellow is what was added. The CEQA exemption, the MPAD Board of Directors find and declare that the repeal of the above listed ordinances is exempt from CEQA pursuant to California Code of Regulations, section 15301 and 15061B3, because their repeal will not cause any expansion of use since the ordinances have never been enforced by MPAD. And this is what's added. and because the repeal is not a project pursuant to CEQA guidelines.
Okay,
So that's what has been added. Now, again, I just want to make the record clear as to what was added so that no one has any confusion.
thank you. Okay, so no questions from the board. Let's open it up for public comments, sort of capping everything. Any member of the public present here and at the chambers wishing to speak now, please stand up. Yeah, I don't see any. Any member of the public joining us remotely wishing to make a comment, please raise your hand.
And Mr. Chair, I see two hands from Ms. Nancy and from Hans.
Okay, we will start with Miss Nancy.
Members of the board, why are you rushing into this? And why does Mr. Huber particularly want to immediately void or repeal the ordinances that we requested to see, that for a long time people said did not exist, but we found out they did exist? It's the 1986 letter from the FAA is proof that they were submitted to the FAA. And if you read that letter, which I will send to all of you as soon as we're done by email, you can see that they went through all the sections. Most of the things were approved. Several of them would still benefit us today. And if you, ANCA has allowed, because of court cases, allowed cities, I can't think of the names offhand right now, but to keep their ordinances that were pre-existing before ANCA of 1990. So having these three ordinances puts our foot in the door to have better safeguards for the community. Monterey Fly Safe Coalition has a Facebook page where pilots, we post the errors that people make, people flying after 10 o'clock at night, doing pattern flying, people flying over neighborhoods they're not supposed to. And we have pilots that say, well, the rules are only voluntary. We don't have to obey them. And they hide their identities. We don't even know who these pilots really are. But they give themselves funny names and they have funny pictures of themselves. They even pretended they were the tower at one point. And we said, how wonderful to have the tower following us. We were really honored. And they said, of course, you must be the real tower because it would be a federal crime to pose as a federal agency. And then they disappeared. But there's a lot of bad actors out there that you aren't aware of because they hide their identity. And if we had an ordinance that was voluntary, even for almost all of these things, it would have more teeth and mean something to people because people say, well, it's not a rule, it's only voluntary. And people do not care about us below. And our environmental, our whole life has changed because of things that happened in the last few years at the airport. There's no navigation easements over the west side, and we are impacted by all kinds of planes because something is wrong with runway 28L, and we're not flying into the wind all the time. Planes are landing over me with tailwinds, and they're scary. And things have to change. So please do not repeal these ordinances at this time without more further investigation. Our FOIA request with the FAA of several months ago has not been fulfilled. We need more information. Don't give up this right because it's the wrong thing to do. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Hans.
Han. Han, your name and what city you're from? Can you hear me, Hans?
Hans, you're muted if you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
This is Joyce Hofferman from the Monterey Fly Safe Coalition. This airport board proposes to repeal ordinance 308 curfew, 309 touch and go restrictions, and 310 altitude restrictions. These ordinances adopted decades before the 1990 ANCA. You're proposing to repeal these ordinances without offering any substantive justification, environmental analysis, or public health rationale. The board has failed to explain who benefits from the repeal and who bears the cost, particularly in terms of noise, sleep disruption, stress-related illness, or loss of community livability. This omission is not just disappointing, it is legally problematic. The board has not conducted or even initiated SEEK review. It has not evaluated whether the repeal would result in increased noise levels, cumulative health impacts, or environmental justice concerns. Repealing these ordinances without completing CEQA review would constitute a clear violation of state environmental laws. Ordinances dealing with airport curfew, touch-and-go operations, and altitude restrictions are clearly fundamental to noise impacts on residents within a 5-mile radius of Monterey Airport. No airport noise monitoring studies have been done as recommended or required by previous airport boards, by the FAA and state environment laws. The board's rationale that these ordinances are ineffective is unsubstantiated. Ordinance 308 was explicitly approved as a voluntary measure by the FAA 1986 letter, and thus does not run afoul of ANCA. Ordinance 310, according to the same letter, was a continuation of ordinance in effect since 1978.
Pause for just a minute. We're having some audio trouble. We've lost you have not been on the speaker for about 25 seconds. So I stopped your time to give you those 25 seconds back. So let me
Okay, all right. Where did it stop? What was the last thing I said?
Last thing you said was about environmental review.
Okay, so the board's rationale that these ordinances are ineffective is unsubstantiated. Ordinance 308 was explicitly approved as a voluntary measure by the FAA 1986 letter and thus does not run afoul of ANCA. Ordinance 310, according to the same letter, was a continuation of an ordinance in effect since 1978. The board's recent efforts to repeal over 900 ordinances, and now these 3 specific ones requested by us by FOIA, raises serious questions. Why now? If the ordinances are truly ineffective, why is repeal necessary at all? Rather than repeal, the board should consider enforcing the ordinance in such a manner that reflect the evolving legal and operational conditions while preserving our community. The board has a legal, ethical, and civic responsibility to act in a manner that is transparent, environmentally sound, and responsive to the health and welfare of its constituents. Repealing these ordinances without CEQA review and without justification would be a grave abdication of your responsibility. We urge you to postpone any vote on item G1 until a full CEQA compliance and public disclosure obligations have been met. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman-
Nancy, you still have your hand up. You've already spoke.
No,
That's Sarah.
sir, it's actually Sarah Hunter that has her hand up. The Samsung SM.
We have another Samsung.
It's the same. She did ask questions, but this is for comment period.
Okay.
Oh, hello. Thank you. First of all, I'd like y'all to know that I started flying small planes when I was 5 years old. I grew up in Alaska. My father was a bush pilot. I am definitely not anti-pilot. However, my first comment is please look at Long Beach Airport. Mr. Huber brought up Orange County a lot. Long Beach Airport, as of January 1st, passed a whole bunch of noise ordinances, and they are currently a Class D, trying to become a Class C airport. Just something for you to look at, my fellow board. My next question is, or comment, please do a noise study. Please do a noise study. Also, the airport staff does their very best when I fill out a noise complaint form, which I loathe to do. There was actually a pilot, I won't say the tail number, on 4th of July while the fireworks were exploding at 10:30 at night that was doing touch and goes over Monterey Airport, terrifying me. The other problem is there are flight schools, not just at Monterey, but all over the Bay Area that come here and always abuse our touch and go. We all know that planes are loudest upon takeoff and landing, which is all, every time I listen to the airport tower and I hear a plane say clear, cleared for the option, that means they can touch and go, stop and go, miss a landing, do all their practice. I am all for people getting a pilot's license. Go do it in Hollister. Go do it in Marina. Go do it in Salinas. Go do it in Watsonville where there are fields. I do not have a way to turn a key, start my home, and move it out of the noise. The airplanes have the ability to choose where they practice. Please keep this in mind. I urge you, as the board, please postpone. I understand Huber's arguments that these are out of compliance with the law. Come up with something stronger and better. Use science. I promise you, Mr. Huber, that the 1972 Cessnas flying out of here are not quieter than they were in 1979. They're not. They're still just as loud. I appreciate that y'all will take our comments as concerns. I've lived in the same location for 9 years. It's gotten horrible in the last 2. So it's not that I don't like airports or have debilitating illness and I cannot escape this torment. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the record, your name and the city you reside in?
Oh, Sarah Hunter in Seaside.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay. I don't see any other hands. We decide if we're going to act on this. We'll start with the end of the table, Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair. I have a lot of comments on this item specifically, and I want to thank everybody who joined to make public comment, and I apologize to all of you if you are having technical issues hearing any of us, and I think we're going to try to do everything that we can to ensure that this doesn't happen moving forward, that people who are able I've had a lot of conversations with Council Huber about this item specifically, and the question that keeps coming up for me is, why are we doing this, and why are we doing it now? Right? These ordinances have been on the books for almost 50 years now, and they have never been enforced. And yet I go back to the ordinance itself, and item I on the ordinance says, whereas leaving invalid, ineffective, or unconstitutional ordinances in place is not a policy of good governance. Statement. The ordinances 308, 309, and 310 are not enforceable based on the infirmities that he specifically called out, as well as the fact that the federal government has sovereignty over the airspace. And I do believe his points that it does not fall within the jurisdiction of this body to regulate these matters in the way in which the public wishes we would. Which is sad to me, because I do think that some of these things are common sense that I wish we could. I recognize that there are people in our community who are very impacted by the operations of the airport. And I wish that there were a remedy that we could implement in order to assuage the challenges that they face in their lives because of operations at the airport. But I don't believe we can. I just don't think that it falls within our jurisdiction to do what we're being asked to do. And so then I asked myself the question, well, if not, what are the consequences of not repealing these ordinances? Right? And I do believe that if we were to repeal them, then we would probably get sued. But in thinking about what's right for the airport, I was like, well, okay, let's not repeal them. They've been on the books for 50 years. It's not caused an issue yet. Let's just leave them and have no impact. But I think the challenge is that if we do leave them, then we get sued for a different reason. We get sued for not enforcing ordinances that we have on the books. And so if we're damned if we do, and we're damned if we don't, then I do think it's a matter of leaning on what is good governance. And in that case, I am in support of repealing these ordinances that are not constitutional and not enforceable, that fall outside the jurisdiction of this body. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't anything that the people in our community can do. There are opportunities to them to try to have these exact rules enforced, which is to submit to the FAA a rulemaking request to have these types of things implemented. And that is, I know the challenges right now of what's happening in the federal government and trying to, have that go through. And I recognize that it's daunting, but it is the remedy to this issue. The one challenge that I have with this is the language that's added to Section 5. And because the repeal is not a project pursuant to CEQA guidelines. I know Mr. Huber made the comment that, it's not being enforced right now, and therefore by repealing it, that it would have no environmental impacts. But it is on the books. And if it were being enforced and it were to be repealed, then there would be environmental impacts. And so I'm not convinced that it doesn't fall within the bounds of what is a project due to CEQA. And so I would ask that we actually strike the added amendment to Section 5 and pass this ordinance 933 in its original language without the amendment to Section 5.
Okay. You have an opportunity to make a motion if you want to.
I would make that motion.
Well, we're not accepting motions at this time.
When we get to that point,
Okay.
I will make that motion, Chair.
Okay. Okay, anything else?
That's all my comments. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Director Leffel.
Thank you. And I agree with my colleague, Mr. Amati. I believe that bad governance needs to be cleaned up. And we're doing that in several places around the airport, which, why now? Whenever you're having a change in administration, it's always kind of a good time to take a look at some of the things that you have and things that you've done and things that you are doing and kind of clean it up. So this is one of those things. This has been ongoing for some time. I really appreciate that staff and Mr. Huber took all the time to dig into all of these and take a look at all of the ordinances that are on the books. And, things change over time, and it appears we have inherited many things that we've uncovered over the 17 or 18 years that two of us have been on the board that were not correct, that were maybe not totally legal, that needed to be cleaned up. And we're slowly working through that. We've had many support the issue and the position that we were taking. So I believe the time is now to clean this up and to put something in that is our intent, which is to having and to make a little more stringent statement that we do support noise and time reductions and put it out to the community in a more broad position. That our staff will work diligently with the pilot associations, with the FBOs, and with our flight schools to really, I guess, educate them on a more regular basis. And I think as a board, we can ask for some timing on that and ask that it's not just a one and done, that it's a continual piece of going out. Time goes by and, you know, you've done it a year ago, maybe you need to do it every quarter. I don't know. We'll talk about that internally, but I think the time has come to clean this up and to make these so that we are in alignment with the federal government and with our grant assurances that when we put something out there that we know that it is proper and that we can enforce it. So thank you. And thank you for all of your work. I mean, I think we all appreciate the fact that you also care about the community and about the airport, and that's important. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Gaglione.
Um, so I'm glad that my colleague Director Amati is recognizing that no good deed goes unpunished. This is something that happens in all public service. We live in this community. I personally have lived in the downwind approach path of this airport for over 50 years. We are the face, we're the touch point of all things aviation in this community. And so the community comes to us to see what they can do to solve all problems with regard to aviation. And we willingly do that. But I strongly believe, and this happens in public service, is that because we are that touch point, because we are where people come to tell it, to lodge complaints, we collect complaints, we provide information. We also are the problem, and we're not. And the position that it puts us in is that when we inform the public and we tell them what we can and what we cannot do, it's because it's not the answer that they necessarily want to hear. We then become the problem. And these ordinances, I think, were raised. I mean, they were raised in this before there was kind of a blanket law from the federal government that restricted all airports from making these types of ordinances. They came out of, I think, the spirit that we all feel, but they were never adopted. They were never enforced, and now they're sitting on our books, completely ineffective, and in our attempt to basically govern within the confines of what we're allowed to do, cleaning up these appendices, you know, these ineffective ordinances is just something that we should do. But because we are the face of all things, of all problems, you know, with aviation in the community, it's perceived as, you know, what are you guys doing? Why are you doing this now? It's a question. what we're doing is we're doing what we should be doing, and that is running a jurisdiction that provides public services or provides services to the public in the most efficient, most cost-effective, most safest way we possibly can. And we do this, this is a highly regulated, highly regulated, I won't call it industry, but our confines is highly regulated. And following the law is an important component or part of what it is that we do. So this is something that we have to do. We have to clean up our legal books. We have to basically put out there, this is what we operate under. These are the services that we provide, and this, cleaning up these ordinances, I think that it's something that should be done. I hear time and again, why don't you have voluntary guidelines and have those out there? That is the next item that's on there. That is an attempt of this airport to show the community that, look, we care, we hear you, but this is what we can do. And we're going to codify that in the next to be taken in stepwise. Let's clean up what's not effective and doesn't help anybody. And like you said, leaves us in maybe potentially legal peril either way. But let's at least address that and get and do that. And then let's move on to the next thing, which is codifying our voluntary guidelines. So maybe a little too long-winded, but that's me.
Okay, thank you. First, I'd like to thank staff for all your hard work in looking into this. I'd like to thank the members of the public for your concern and input. We do hear you. Your concerns are listened to. Somebody made the comment, why are we in a hurry to do this?
Go back to I disagree.
Okay. I disagree. We are not in a hurry to do this. This came before the board months ago. And when there was concern from the community and we had questions, we put a stop to it. We asked for more to be done. Mr. Huber, you put a lot of time into this, hours and hours researching this and going back into history. So, and there is a danger leaving unenforceable ordinances on the criminal penalties on the books that cannot be enforced by us. So there is a little bit of urgency to clean house.
Can somebody call Alvarez and see if they need to redirect something?
They don't, but what we're gonna try here is, let's get through this item. We're gonna try to switch computers.
Okay.
It is.
We'll take a break as soon as we're done here. Anyway, there is a danger. We've ran this in front of Air Services noise. Removal or of these ordinances. FAA has also implied, I think one can draw the conclusion that any attempt we made to get these ordinances approved were not, because they only said we could handle this as voluntary. So it is necessary to make it voluntary and not a criminal penalty. So that's why I'll be supporting this.
So, Mr. Chair, the request of staff is that you pass the ordinance as amended and authorize us to file a notice of exemption administratively. It's an administrative document that sort of gives notice to the public generally.
So the question I have for you, there was some discussion about removing what you added. Is there a reason why you felt a need to have that included?
Yeah, because in the staff report, we mentioned that this is not a project under CEQA.
Yes.
And in the event that there is a challenge, you want to have all of those tools available to you. And the ordinance itself, very beginning, the board finds and declares as follows. And so you're making findings and you're making determinations. And so in my opinion, you want, if you've got 5 ways to hammer a nail, you want all 5 available to you. In this instance, you've got these different reasons why it's exempt from CEQA. And I just, as an attorney, I recommend you put them all in.
Yeah. So this would be normal and customary language for something like this?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'll entertain motions.
May I ask one more question, staff?
Sure.
I just, the noise study thing keeps coming up. And I know that we have explained in the Air Service Community Relations Committee multiple times. And I know that some of the people who are involved today have heard this multiple times. But I know that to me, it's important that we heard clearly from FAA that they were not going to entertain any new noise studies for at least the next couple of years. We've heard that from the director of FAA. We've heard it from regional people at FAA. We have said that publicly. I want to say that again, because it is an FAA paid for exercise. And it's not just go out and put out some little sensors and do a noise study. It's very comprehensive, and it's not, it manages a lot of what we do going forward. That's number one. And Ms. Morello, if you can just speak to when we did our, I think it was our environmental review. It was whatever we did for our newest modernization and safety program. We did have to address noise. Is that correct?
That is correct. So in the master plan and in the documents that support the master plan, both the EIR and the NEPA, we did do noise studies, and all of the activities that are happening today are within the parameters of those studies that were done during the master plan process.
And when was that? What year?
2015 through 2020 was the time that we were working on the master plan and all of the supporting documentation.
Okay, so I just wanted to make that clear and have it in the record that this isn't something that we're dealing with from 50 years ago or 30 years ago, that it is more recent than that, and that we are in compliance with all of that. And that when FAA has the money and they go ahead with a noise study, that we will be totally in support of a new updated complete noise study for the airport. So we're not ignoring that. It's just a matter of timing from the regulator of airports. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's all.
That's an important point. FAA is re-examining noise standards that they've had in place. So they have put a hold temporarily funding these. And these studies are very expensive, hundreds of thousands of dollars, $500,000 just to do part of a study. Full study could be $750,000. So FAA doesn't fund that. We would have to pay it, and we would receive no benefit if they change the rules later. In the past, we were able to access monies to quiet homes surrounding the airport. So maybe that will open up again. And if so, we would certainly jump on that opportunity to do a study and bring that benefit to the community. Okay, I will entertain any motions at this time.
So Chair, is this when I would make a motion to amend this?
Yes.
resolution?
Yep.
I move that we amend Resolution 933, an ordinance of the Airport District to repeal ordinances 308, 309, and 310, and strike the language, and because the repeal is not a project pursuant to CEQA guidelines, and that we pass the ordinance as it was initially presented to the board without that language.
Okay, and the reason you want that removed is to leave a door open for someone to walk through and sue us?
No, I believe that the language that's in there right now is accurate, that we find and declare that the repeal of the above ordinances is exempt from CEQA pursuant to the California Code because the repeal will not cause any expansion of use since the ordinances have never been enforced by MPAD. That, I believe, is a correct statement. I am not convinced that the next line is a correct statement. I think that there is a
But this is
gray
the part.
area, that there's a gray area that that line is something that could be grounds for a lawsuit, that somebody could sue and say, this is a project.
Okay,
That's the reason for my amendment.
okay. Do I have a second? Okay, motion dies for lack of a second. Are there any other motions?
I would move that we adopt ordinance number 933, an ordinance of the Monterey Peninsula Airport District to repeal ordinances 308, 309, and 310 related to limiting airport hours of operation, regulating altitude of aircraft within certain distances of the airport, regulating touch and go, stop and go operations.
I'll second.
And Madam Board Member, does that include the amendment in section 5?
It does, I'm sorry, it does include that.
And does your motion also include that you want us to file administratively a notice of exemption?
Yes.
It was my request that we
Okay,
be authorized
yes.
to do that. And does the second also agree
Yeah.
to those?
We have a first and second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Director Marty,
Aye.
Director Gagliardi,
Aye.
Director Leffel,
Yes.
Chair Miller.
Yes. Okay, we are going to take, how long do you need?
5 minutes, please.
5 minutes. We'll take 5 minutes. We're ready whenever. Okay, welcome back. We're
Mr. Chair,
in open.
Mr. Chair, would you allow me to do something for just a moment? If members in the public, their attendees, if you can hear us, would you raise your hand?
Yep,
Okay,
thank you.
they can't hear. Thank you so much. We have switched computers, and so we should hopefully audio issues resolve, the minor audio issues we were having, but
Okay, welcome back to the regularly scheduled meeting of the July 16th, 2025 meeting of the Monterey Peninsula Board of Directors, Airport Board. We went into recess after finishing G1. We are back in open session with item G2. Who is going to take this one?
well, I'll since lawyers get paid by the word, apparently. I'll go
In
ahead.
your case, you're under.
That's right. That is true. I am under contract. Okay. So every time it blitzes out the video, it changes the audio as well, but it's now back. Okay, so in light of the action that was just recently taken, we do want to make sure that there is a formal resolution approved by the board to codify these, fly quiet voluntary requests. They are voluntary. Obviously, ultimately the pilot and the tower are in control of safety for any flight, any individual flight, but currently the district does employ preferential runway usage and VFR turn altitude guidance, pattern altitude standards, pattern altitude standards for providing helicopter operations, parameters for touch and go operations and practice approaches, and nighttime voluntary curfew hours with PPR requirement for turbine aircraft operations. So in an effort to enhance the transparency on this, and to make sure that we can update the website so anybody looking for the information can find it. We do have a resolution that formalizes the district's voluntary fly quiet program, which encourages all pilots and operators to adhere to the district's criteria. These criteria include preferential runway usage, altitude standards, voluntary curfew for non-commercial turbine aircraft, and operational limitations. And it also, the resolution directs staff to broadly disseminate these materials to the aviation community and the public through established district communication channels. We do have an amendment to Exhibit A, which is the actual noise policy statement, roles and responsibilities. I will go ahead and share my screen and pull that up. On the first page, there were no changes. On the second page, there were no changes. On the third page, under the heading touch and go operations, we've now added and practice operations. This is a red line version of what we would recommend. It sort of merged the practice approaches up with the touch and go operations. We recommend that they do that during the hours of 08:30 a.m. to 2000 hours, which is 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 1800 hours, Saturday, Sunday, and holidays. We recommend touch and go and practice operations are restricted to 4 within a 2-hour period per pilot. Again, practice approaches is crossed out, but it has been added up above to the item just above that. We put, instead of using the term curfew, we put voluntary non-operation hours to make it clear that we want no operations whatsoever during that time period, and that a prior permission request is required for multi-engine turbine-powered aircraft during those non-operation hours. And then there is the link, of course, to where that can be found on the airport's website. Staff recommends approval. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions from the board? We'll start down with Director Gaglione.
No, I appreciate, I think, I like the red line. It totally cleans up and makes very clear exactly what it is we're trying to convey the flag community. So I really appreciate that.
Director Guy.
Did you get any of that? I totally agree with the red line. I think this is the spirit that with this came out of the discussion in the committee meeting. And I think that this just, it makes it real tight, cleans it up.
Very good, but no questions.
None questions.
Okay. Any questions, Director Leffel?
Do we need to just add something? I know that we say that we're going to encourage and educate, but do we also need to add flight school and our flight-based operations? Just to be clear.
Sorry, not understanding your request.
I'm trying to find the place where it says it, that we're going to disseminate materials to aviation community and public through established district communication channels. And then I saw it someplace else. I'm struggling to,
You're on resolution number 3. On the resolution, I think number 3, staff shall distribute its voluntary noise management criteria and materials to pilots, community stakeholders, and on district communications related to this matter. Is that for?
Mhm. So I would like to make it just that it is a continual process. It's not just one and done. You know, and time passes and all of a sudden, it's like, well, we haven't done it for 2 years. And so, and people change all over the operation. So I think maybe if we could make sure that we're doing it on a kind of set a time thing, I don't know how often. You all can tell me what's feasible, but it's easy to say, oh, I did it in 2025 and now we're in 2027. So,
We can put continually or something, but we do. So even when they come in and get their badges, et cetera, they're given this information. So it is something that we do continuously. Our operation staff are always checking in with our tenants, especially the FBOs and the flight school, and looking to make sure the stuff is being distributed. So we can maybe just spell it out in more continuously or something like that, and not necessarily put a specific time period.
Okay.
What if the phrase at the end of number 3 said, and on district communications related to this matter, comma, or not comma, on a routine and regular basis?
that would make me happy. And do they post it? Is it actually posted in big, like,
Yes.
be aware,
Yes,
be a good neighbor, whatever,
yes.
in the flight school
It
and
is. It's
okay.
posted in there, and they check on operation staff regularly are in there checking to make sure it's there and that it's being disseminated and communicated. So yes, they do.
There's also a sign next to the taxiway Alpha down.
I see it when I
that-
fly
that-
out.
That references that.
I see it, but and thank you for adding per pilot, because I added it in my notes because I know that's come up before, that there
Yeah.
may be 2 trainees,
Okay.
2 trainees per plane, and that one does it and then the other one does it. So thank you for clarifying that. Got one more thing.
If you find it, we can come back.
Okay, thanks. It's wording, it's bothering me and I'm just trying to clean it up. So go ahead and I can't stand it when things are not.
Director
correct.
Amani.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I would just actually ask council if, for the sake of the public, we just passed an ordinance. This is a resolution. If you don't mind just describing for them kind of the difference between the two and.
So an ordinance has the force and effect of law. It is the equivalent of, so the state passes laws all the time. The state legislature does. They're signed by the governor. They're enacted. An ordinance is the equivalent to a state law, but it only applies within your jurisdiction. So an ordinance has the force and effect of law, and it generally requires mandatory things be done or mandatory things to not be done. A resolution is a policy statement saying this is what we request, but it doesn't have the force and effect of law where someone could be fined or arrested or some other criminal behavior associated with that. And so that's why a resolution is appropriate here, because this is a voluntary program, although we will vigorously on a routine and regular basis communicate this with pilots and with all stakeholders. But it doesn't have the ability for a member of the public to say, I'm going to sue to enforce this resolution. Can't happen.
Right. Thank you for that. So 2 other quick questions. There's a table for roles and responsibilities. It starts on page 1 and it's continued on page 2.
Yes.
And on page 2, there's a responsibility which only falls under the airport to maintain transparency in reporting community noise, feedback, and noise data. I'm wondering if, and as far as I'm aware, the way in which we do that today is by including the comments that we receive from the public in the monthly board packet. Is that an accurate statement?
Well, they're also reviewed in Air
Services.
Service Noise Committee. So we do take time every meeting to review those and discuss those more in detail.
And, in reviewing those, I see that, you have the comment from the community member.
Right.
And then in the notes section, what I'm assuming is that our airport staff work with the tower to get any additional details
The rest of the story.
for that
Yes.
flight. Is that an
For
accurate
that, for
statement?
that incident,
Right.
yes.
So I wonder if then, under the ATC, under the responsibilities there, we could just add some language that they're also a part of what we do to report out and show transparency on these different noise violations, that we're not doing this in a silo, that we're working with them and that they have some responsibility there as well. So that's one thing that I would,
Yeah, of
ask.
course, they don't work for us, so we can't direct them. Staff,
We could just repeat what we have in the one that's before on page 1. I mean, that is their function is design and enforce air traffic procedures to ensure safety and efficiency, airspace and management. We can repeat that here as well, because that's their responsibility under,
under their charter.
under their charter, correct?
Yeah.
So,
So technically, under their charter, they don't have any responsibilities as it relates to transparency for noise violations.
well, they're not violations. This is
Right.
a volunteer program, so I would start there. But technically, yeah, they are chartered with safe
Yeah.
airspace requirements.
Okay.
That is their requirement. So we will have a link to FAA. Whitney and I have talked about this, FAA guidelines for noise and other pieces that we're going to add on to this as well. So it's just
On the
another
website.
resource on the website.
Okay.
It's another resource that takes the community to FAA documents as it relates to airspace, noise, and other things. So.
I have heard from certain members of the community that, they feel like they will, file complaints within the FAA's system and that it just kind of disappears into a black hole. I wonder if on the website we could also include contact information for their federal representatives who are not us, but direct them to, if you have additional questions or feedback for the FAA, point them in the direction of the right people who they should be working
That is
with.
that has a lot of different resources, including some videos that they've done as well. But some of those links will have contacts and connections.
Including contact information for the district office for Representative Panetta, as an example.
I would not necessarily put
No.
that there, because I don't think that's under necessarily our noise requirements and purview, but
So,
I will take that under advisement. I believe FAA is the one that is been given the overall and overarching requirements for aviation safety. So I think that, and that is then dictated by Congress overall, absolutely. But I think we just need to put the FAA's components there.
Yeah.
my only other question or comment is, there's a map showing the preferred departure.
Mhm.
And on that map, it shows a part of the peninsula as a noise sensitive area. I'm just wondering, how is this map developed? Who determined that that's the area of the community that's a noise sensitive area? That was FAA?
That was done in the 2008 noise study, that the last official study that was done as a standalone study.
By the FAA or by the airport?
In collaboration with the FAA, it was a study that was done on noise in 2008. And this is one of the components that came out of that study at that time.
Got it. And so in that study, that was the only area that was determined to be
The-
noise sensitive, and that's how the map was developed?
Again, looking for, this is departures only. This is all we're looking at here is the departure component. So that is the only site, that is the area within the departures that was identified.
Okay. All I got.
Okay. And basically, this is what we've been doing all along, correct? This
This is
Correct.
what is on the current, this is currently what is on the
Yeah.
website. We, with the Air Service Committee's recommendations, they asked us to clean up some of the language to make it very clear. And some of the language was based on, just wasn't clear, I believe. So we have, at the direction, provided some additional language or some cleanups to that language, but this will stay on the website and just be edited with those red lines that we just showed you. So
Okay.
yes, it is there.
And at one point, I know we approved the purchase of pilot inserts for their books that they carry. Do we still have any of those?
Yeah, we do still have some pamphlets, handouts from the FAA. In fact, we just received additional. All of those items are also available now digitally. So we do advocate that pilots pick that stuff up.
Yeah, we actually printed up. They were like in card stock, they had like a lot of holes on the side of them. I still have them somewhere. Do we have any of those? And we would just make them free available that pilots can insert them in there.
We still have them.
Okay, good. Good. If you need more, just let us know.
Chair, I'm sorry, I did have one extra question, and I think this is probably more directed towards Director Gagliotti. You mentioned that for John Wayne, that when pilots are looking to land or take off from John Wayne, that there are those rules for them in terms of departures and things like that. Are there ways in which these recommendations could be established within that system for pilots, that for those who are not familiar with the area, that when they're making their flight plans, or is that outside of our jurisdiction of what we're able to do?
So I'll answer mine, and then I'd like you to step in kind of on so both at John Wayne and here, and even in Long Beach, I know that Miss Nancy actually mentioned Long Beach. They're towered airports, and so you are given a clearance and you are given a departure. And so at John Wayne, when I've taken off, if you are flying IFR, they will give you that departure. But that is given to the pilot totally within the ATC tower clearance, kind of milieu. It's not the airport. And so they make that decision. And in here, specifically at Monterey, you are directed on how you are to take off. And then you could be mid-flight or mid-takeoff, and the tower will come in and say, right turn, turn right, turn like that. So while you could have, well, we do have a departure. We have the Monterey 5, which has this in it. Basically, you come up to 328, and then you go off and you climb to whatever, and then ATC will direct you from that point. So again, it's a long-winded answer. I apologize, but the short answer is that is already in place. It is doing. Is that?
That's correct. And it's also on our 5010, which is a form that we fill out that has all of the information about the airport. It has our runway length, it has our runway, what types of navigators are around, but it also has our
Recommendations.
recommendations.
Which pilots are required to access when they're going to be making their flight plan to land here. So they are required to at least look at this, even for pilots who are not familiar to the area.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's a requirement.
Yeah,
it's a
no.
recommendation.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly. It's not in the NOTAMs, but it's in the errata that, and to some degree, it actually is a requirement. A pilot, if something goes wrong, the first thing that the FAA does is they say it's the pilot's, did the pilot go through the whole process, and did they read all of the NOTAMs? Did they read all of the things? Is it done in full practice every single time? Yeah, but it's to some degree it is a requirement, but yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
That was it.
Okay, that ends the questions. Let's open it up for public comment before we come back for any motion. Any member of the public that's present wishing to speak, step to the podium.
And turn it on and off, just.
State your name for the record and what city you live in.
At the bottom. Yep.
Or talk really loud?
Good morning, I'm Matt Pastelaniak. I am a pilot here, based here out of Monterey. I have an aircraft in one of the hangars. I am also the unofficial lead of the Monterey Pilots Group, which comprises about 46, 48 members. And then I also have an additional unofficial title as the AOPA volunteer rep here for the Monterey Airport. In the interest of trying to cut down on the number of complaints based on these recommendations here, just like to have a couple things I'd like to offer up. One is under your touch and go practice operations, the verbiage that you have listed there kind of almost guarantees that you're going to get complaints, because you're saying that you want to recommend that practice approaches and touch and goes be limited to the hours of 8:30 to 2000. That does not, in the summertime at least, allow for any nighttime operations, full dark operations. So if you, and that's especially true for the flight school. They have folks that have to get nighttime qualified. They can take off out of here and go to other places, but sometimes proximity here, they need to get a number of landings. So you're by limiting them to 2000, you're guaranteeing that there's going to be people outside those recommended hours when they're trying to get their nighttime currency or qualifications. And the second part of that is by you limit it even further from 09 to 1800 on weekends or holidays. And again, same thing during the summertime, that's you're not allowing them to get any kind of nighttime flights in full darkness, which is in the vernacular is a half hour after sunset. That's when official nighttime begins. And that may be the only time that a lot of folks are able to access the flight school aircraft is on the weekends or holidays because they're working and such. So I don't know if that's something you might want to consider amending that, because you're almost guaranteeing you're going to get complaints by people pointing to, hey, our recommendations say 2000 and 1800. They have to fly outside those hours when specifically they're looking to get nighttime and the instrument qualifications, which can be done during the daytime under the hoods, sort of. But at night or in actual instrument conditions is when the rubber really meets the road, and they need to get those actual conditions. So I offer that up just for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, can I respond to you?
Well, sure, go ahead.
Okay, I recognize that, and it was, I believe it was thought of in the thing. That's where the four within a 2-hour period for nighttime qualification, it's 3 landings, 3 takeoffs, and so and so 4 is 3 landings, 3 takeoffs, and maybe 1 go around. So I think that they would still be in compliance and still can get their nighttime. They can still get their nighttime.
Nighttime is considered half an hour after sunset?
Full dark. Yeah.
Full dark or half an
Something
hour after?
twilight.
sunset?
What is it? Something civil twilight. That's it. Yeah.
It's defined as a half an hour after legal sunset.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
But I would tell you that, I mean, we refer to that as pinky, right? I mean, still kind of light out. You can still see.
Yeah.
And if you want to get no kidding nighttime, you got to wait till it's black, dark.
But I
The
think
second part.
this will
for them.
allow to get nighttime qualification. I just did it, 2 days ago.
You do it here or?
Yep.
Okay.
Totally. 3 landings, 3 takeoffs.
And what time was that you did that?
10 o'clock at night.
10 o'clock at
Yeah.
night. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's 2,200 hours,
Right.
not,
But
So-
it was within the 3, there were 4 within that 2-hour period. Yeah, but I mean, but it's 4, meaning that you're limited to 4.
Okay.
online.
Oh, any member of the public in virtual wishing to make a comment?
And Mr. Chair, we do have a hand from Samsung, which I believe again is Sarah Hunter.
Ms. Hunter, you want to comment at this time?
Yes, thank you. So my understanding from these edits is that Miss Leffel would like to increase the number of touch and goes by changing it to per pilot. Right now, one plane can do between 10 and 12 touch and goes in 1 hour when the recommendation is 4 in 2. And if you change it to per pilot, you're guaranteeing our torture of a minimum of 8 touch and goes in 1 hour. Please reconsider that edit, number one. Number two, I heard you doing your nighttime 10 o'clock at night, and you woke me up and I couldn't go to sleep for another hour. Please do not remove the voluntary nighttime qualification hours. We have flight schools flying in from Fresno, from Reed Hill at 1 in the morning to do nighttime touch and go qualifications. We need to be able to use the noise comment form, report to the airport staff, have them remind the schools to be good neighbors and good pilots. So that edit of putting per pilot increases our noise. I highly recommend you remove that edit. Number three, the FAA, I've been told by airport staff, has nothing to do with our noise management. However, I would recommend two things. One, that you give them a copy at least of our noise abatement guidelines. However, I have been told by airport staff they completely ignored, are not interested. They will approve 100 touch and goes by a plane in 6 hours. They don't care. The third thing I would recommend is that, as Jonathan said, please put a link where the noise comment form is. There's a direct link that other airports have where you can poke it to the FAA noise comment form. Having all the information and all the videos about how the FAA regulates noise is not going to be nearly as effective as a one poke link to fill out an FAA's noise comment form. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member of the public joining us remotely?
And Mr. Chair, I see no hands.
Okay.
I'd like to make one point. Nighttime qualification is a requirement to be a pilot to fly at night. You have to do this. So it's a requirement. This is an
Or
airport.
if you have instrument rating.
If you want to fly at night. And if I take off and come in, I can't land here if I'm at night. If I'm not, and it has to be done every 90 days. So this is just the base, you have to do that. And this airport has to allow for that. It's a minimum. So.
Well, I was allowing comment from us. So anything else you want to say?
No, I just think that it's an important thing that we can't restrict the function of the airport is to safely allow pilots to land and take off, aircraft to take off. So, and there are requirements of a pilot in order to legally and safely do that. So
Right.
we have to be able to allow that. Anything beyond that, and that's what I believe this voluntary these voluntary guidelines are trying to limit that. Or trying to actually keep that within what we believe is reasonable. But there is a minimum, an absolute minimum that we have to allow.
Yeah. And the bottom line is we can't disallow it.
Absolutely. Right.
And so I get that. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Director Leffel, any closing comments before we move on this?
A few. So number one, I hear what Mr. Matt is saying about this, and I think, I don't know what you call it, civil twilight, but I know that the sunset's been at like 8:20 or 8:30 the last few nights. So, and I hear what Director Gagliardi's saying, but I also think that even if they leave at 7 and then are up for a couple of hours and they do the last touch and go at 9 o'clock, then they're in violation of what we are asking them to do. So I would, and I'm sorry, Ms. Hunter, but I believe that in order to make this so that it is the spirit of how we're trying to do this and not have just open it up to, well, everybody violated it, that we should make that 2,200 as opposed to 2,000 to allow for the summer hours of when the mandatory reevaluation, recertification of our pilot community is up, trying to get their required hours in. So I think 2,200 would make more sense. And then the per pilot thing is just because, and I'm not a pilot, so, but what I've heard is that the touch and goes, that sometimes when they are accelerated in a period of time, it is because you have 2 trainees in a plane. I don't know how often that happens. I have no idea. Not going to ever be one of those. But I do believe if we're trying to clean this up and make it so that it is satisfying our pilot community, our training community, and also just there's a justification for it. I do believe that per pilot is a necessary addition to that. Then I'm going to go to the resolution because I did kind of find what was bugging me. On number 3, it's just wording, but I think it should say, and in all district communications related to this matter. So whether it's on our website or written or however we're communicating, I think it should be that.
Instead of on.
Yes, on doesn't make any sense in that sentence at all. And then the third whereas, the board established the Air Carrier Service Marketing Community Relations Committee to be able to invite the public to have a discussion about their comments that are related to noise, air traffic, other matters. And I think that's important. It was established just as air service, and then we expanded that a couple of years ago and really made it the place where the public can come in and have a discussion, because we're really kind of breaking the law today by having some open discussion with the public, breaking the rules of how you should do Brown Act. But I do believe that if that's just changed a little bit, that it was established, expanded, whatever. And I don't know that it's always concerns. Occasionally we get someone who comes in with a compliment. So I think it's just, or hey, a way this, you could do it a little better. So I think it's just maybe, if you could just change that a little bit, that would make me happy, as opposed to this is, everybody's complaining and we're trying to make it better. We do not live just on complaints, so, and concerns. But other than that, I think I'm good with it.
Okay, thank you. Director Amani.
I did have a quick question, and I apologize for not knowing this, but in terms of the training that's required for the nighttime operations, are those landings required to be at a certain class of airport? Because I know that, we have a specific class rating as opposed to some of the other airports, but for example, could you have done those nighttime touch and goes at Marina or the other local airport?
The short answer to that, can I respond?
Yeah.
Chair? The short answer is yes, but this is the airport that I come into if I'm going to be flying in at night. So I would like to practice here, meaning that and it's 3 landings and 3 touch and goes every 90 days. Yeah. And so or not touch and goes, 3 landings full stop, and then 3 takeoffs. And I mean, this is my home airport. This is where I keep my airplanes. So this is where I would practice. It makes sense that I would practice here.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but if you went up at 7:30 and then went to Marina and did it all,
Yeah.
if we had 8 o'clock, you couldn't come back here to land
Yeah.
without kind of breaking
Yeah.
our recommendation.
Yeah.
And
then-
you'd have to land in Marina and come home tomorrow morning.
Right, right. Also, I mean, it's a safety thing too. I mean, this has an ILS, right? So if I am flying at night and all of a sudden the marine layer comes in, I've got the ILS to bring me home. Yeah. This is for safety. I mean, I want to say that we train and we practice and we build these hours so that when we're in the situations in real time, it's not the first time. And, you know, time and again, if you read the, all the fatal crash logs, it's not one thing that kills that becomes a fatal, becomes the fatal flaw. It's pilot was unfamiliar with the airport. Pilot didn't know, didn't know the procedures, hadn't done their nighttime training. It's like 3, 4, 5 things.
Mhm.
And so we, as pilots, for our, is that we train pieces and parts of that. And we're required, it has to be in our logbook,
Yeah. I understand that. I was just asking the question of whether or not it was required to be at this airport
No.
because I wasn't familiar.
No,
But, if in thinking about that, then, Matt had mentioned that he represents 45, 40 something plus pilots. If all of them are required to do that
yeah.
and they need to do 3 every 90 days, then you're looking at almost 150 nighttime takeoff and landings every 90 days just from the pilots that he represents.
You have to have
So,
3 over 90, meaning over a period of 90 days. If
Sure.
you're within, if you're within that 90 days and you do one, and then 2 weeks later you do another, you land, it's in aggregate. It's 6 in aggregate. I just let mine lapse. And this is actually one of the problems, is that because it gets dark so late, you often will find yourself in the summer getting close to lapsing. And so you do that before you lapse. You have to do it before you lapse,
Yeah.
because you can't go flying if you don't.
But it's a rolling.
It's a roll.
One night, you're just going to keep.
No, exactly.
I think to the point of the timing and the recognition that there are requirements based on the daylight, my recommendation would be, rather than establish an actual time frame, that we use the language of, what was it, civil twilight, that say, within an hour of civil twilight or something like that within the regulation, so that during the winter or during the summer, that date was variable based on when the actual sunset is.
That's a great idea. The thing is that regulation, I like this, and I think we should maybe even incorporate it, but it's not the ceiling, it's not the limit. That's when you can start. Meaning that 1 hour after civil, or 30 minutes after civil twilight, that's when you can actually do your nighttime
Sure.
activity.
So I guess what I'm saying is that, like, an hour after that point, or 2 hours after that point, or an hour and a half after.
But you would
that
say
point
that's
is-
you would say that's the limit, and that's actually when you would be that's when we need to start.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, that we modify it during the summer months to allow for the more daylight time. So
I leave like at 10 o'clock in the summer, because there's no question. And my plane records everything, right? And so my log gets updated, recorded. So there's never any, like, you can look at my logbook and it actually has the hours that are recorded from it. So there's no way I can fudge it, any of that. So I mean, the reason I said that is that confirms that I did that training, or I did those hours during those times.
well, staff, you've heard us talk about this. Any recommendations? Taking in, you know, I don't want this to be, I want this to be as close to what we are doing now, to be consistent, but, you know, if we're so restrictive that pilots just can't do this, even if they wanted to, I don't think that helps us.
I think, well, again, these are voluntary.
Right?
So there are those exceptions that are out there. And maybe instead we put an exception for those that need their certification under nighttime, however we want to word it, and add that to it instead of trying to manipulate hours,
Yeah.
et cetera. But just, we have other exemptions in here, so
Yeah.
maybe that's how we.
I like that.
handle that.
That sound good? Sound
It's
good?
currency. I mean, it's pilot currency, right?
In order
the-
to maintain pilot currency.
Pilot currency, exactly,
Okay.
right?
But we're not encouraging it or welcoming it necessarily. We're just recognizing that it's necessary.
Yeah, well, we do want to encourage that our pilots are safe.
True. Okay.
So are we putting an hour on there? Or are we just leaving it up to whatever time? I think civil twilight was plus. I'm just saying if I call in and I complain because there's a plane at 10:05, then somebody on staff has to go back and look and see what was civil twilight plus blah, blah. And then I'm just saying, I think we're opening everybody up to interpretation
But-
and
My recommendation on this one is leave the hours as they are and add in a sentence that says operations related to pilot currency and certifications are exempt.
no.
Because then if a pilot does it, they can show, hey, look, I needed my 3 touch and goes at nighttime or else I can't fly at night at all. And,
Yeah.
and so it would specifically exempt operations for pilot currency.
Okay, I'm going to push back. I think that is too loose. And then what does our staff have to do? Call whoever the person is and ask them, what were you doing? Were you recertifying or were you just out for a joyride, getting a hamburger from Harris Ranch and came in late? I believe we need to put hours that someone can look at and know that that is the hour that they should have finished by. And if they can't do it by 10 o'clock, then shame on them, and you know what, slap their hands. But I think we owe it to the public too, that they don't have to go look up when was twilight tonight and are they in violation. I think we have to put a time on it. And we operate under a lot of rules and a lot of guidelines here, and I just think it's fair to everybody to set a time that everybody could live with. And if 10 o'clock, I think 10 o'clock is a reasonable time for smaller planes to get it in. And in the wintertime, they got a lot of time to
Yeah.
practice. And in the summertime, they have less, but they could still do a landing and takeoff between 8:30 and 10.
Oh, so go ahead.
Anyway, and the other thing is I see an inconsistency on Exhibit A on the top of page 4. This is voluntary, non-operation hours from midnight to 5. And then I see over here on our resolution, it's from 11 to 7 for blah, blah, blah. So what is this? And I see that it clarifies some kind of PPR requirement for turbine aircraft, but it doesn't. We got all these different times here. We just need to be clear.
So you're suggesting, Madam Board Member Leffel, that we change the nighttime voluntary non-operation hours to match the ones that are in the resolution in paragraph 2D to match the ones that are in Exhibit A?
I don't know, unless you're talking about two different kinds of aircraft and operations. I don't understand what you're doing here. Because one defines more turbine and then the other one doesn't it just says non-exempt aircraft, so.
Yeah. So we're gonna change the language in item 2D to match Exhibit A, page 4, which is midnight to 5 a.m. as a voluntary non-operation hours.
Is that because we're trying to accommodate the flights that take off at 5, the airline flights, or arrive as late as 11:30?
Well, they're exempt.
Airlines
Those
are
are
exempt.
exempt.
Yeah.
We are trying, I believe, to accommodate our tenants that do business and need to leave. Because we have a lot of tenants that have aircraft here that need to be up and out and off to somewhere earlier than leaving at 7.
Yeah, so I'm just asking us to make it consistent. So we're gonna go midnight to 5, and then that takes care of our planes that depart at 5:05 or whatever time they depart, right? And it takes care of hopefully the one that is scheduled that comes in like at 11 something.
Well, those are exempt, right?
Yes, those are exempt.
Yeah, I'm just,
Yeah,
That 5 a.m. is pretty early.
I leave at
And
5 a.m. sometimes.
midnight's pretty late. I think if we are asking for what we think is reasonable, I think 5 a.m. is pretty early for me. I- The 7 a.m., the 11 to 7 is, I think, for most operations, what feels right to me that's actually in the resolution itself. And I would prefer to see what's in Exhibit A change to reflect the 7 to 11, as opposed to changing this to reflect 5 to midnight. That's
Uh,
pretty late and pretty early.
Well, I mean,
lot of
so
places.
if you're gonna fly in the desert, you wanna leave here 2 hours before, 3 hours before the sun comes up in the desert, right? So you leave here 5 a.m. and then you're flying in the desert at 8 o'clock in the morning, 10 in the morning, before the desert heats up.
I understand that, but I think it's a balance, right? I mean, we're not just trying to accommodate the pilots, we're also trying to accommodate people in the community. And so we're trying to find something that's in between.
I would, well, I mean, if this is voluntary and this is in here and I'm a pilot and I'm flying and the safe decision that I'm making is to be able to fly through the desert at 8 a.m. as opposed to flying through the desert at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. or 12 or anything like that. I'm going to leave at 5 a.m. And I do that. I mean, I make that decision because I'm making a safe decision. It's totally based on safety. This is an airport.
It's not because you like to get up at 5 o'clock.
No, I don't. I would rather not. Meg would not like to be, have to leave and, at 5 a.m., but it's safe. So,
I will reiterate, these, whatever timeline you put in here, they're voluntary.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It is the request that I don't think anyone here at the airport would request that pilots fly in an unsafe manner.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think what we're saying is, if we keep the nighttime voluntary non-operation hours from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. And it's, again, it's voluntary, I think that's reasonable. And if someone has a legitimate excuse that for safety or what have you, then fine.
Are we going to be calling people if they are flying at 5 a.m.? Is that the idea? Because I heard you say that we would have to figure out civil twilight. and-
if someone says I was awakened at 5 a.m. by a plane taking off, then that comes in on a comment log. Then staff has to investigate it and say, this pilot did blah, blah, blah. That's what I'm saying. Because our staff has done a really good job. They used to just go, it was just another plane taking off, go pound sand. And now they don't. They go and they look at it and say, why did it happen and what happened? So if we make this too restrictive, and we've got a lot of agricultural companies that have their planes here, that they leave to go to Yuma and they
Yeah.
go to the desert area a lot. I think we're just opening it up that if I want to make a comment log daily login, I can just go, there it goes again, and make my call, and then it makes our staff have to go back and take a look at it. I'm just trying to,
That last part, that's what I'm curious about, is that does this resolution now then require that staff has to follow up on to make sure that there's adherence to voluntary to a voluntary resolution or a voluntary guideline? Yeah, I didn't think so.
The resolution does not. What has been this typical practice is, remember, this is complaint driven.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
When we receive a complaint, we investigate it. That does not mean that we necessarily contact the pilots. That might be a very difficult endeavor
Yeah,
actually to do. But they can go back and look at flight radar and
Sure.
determine, okay, what was it that was going on? And then give that information to the person who's making the complaint.
Gaming this out, if we said this at 7 a.m., I left at 5 a.m., someone makes a complaint and they say Skylane 11131, you guys can all write that down.
Skylane.
11131, yeah.
Mr.
Left at 5 a.m. And what would then staff's action be? What would they do?
Staff would respond with, oh, go ahead.
So per your point, we would investigate. So not to the level of whose aircraft is it, but they took off from here. We'd confirm that that was actually the case, because sometimes we get complaints that are unconfirmable. We can't find them on a flight radar. They
Okay.
thought they heard something, whatever the case may be. We could also check weather here. We could check weather at the destination airport if we can see where Skylane 1113 lands.
Mhm.
We just collect information and then we return that to the commenter by no way of assumptions. It's just facts. This is what we see.
Okay, where does does the time trigger the response? Meaning,
Whoever comments triggers our response.
yeah, so does it make a difference if there's any difference in the time, whether it says 5 a.m. or 7 a.m.?
It does not. We look at it no matter what.
Yeah,
but you could say it is within our intended voluntary hours or not. That's all I'm saying. It's like,
yeah, I understand that. It gives you more narrative, or gives you more in the response. Okay.
I forgot where I was. Per pilot, multiple trainees in an aircraft, you're not switching seats in flight, are you?
No.
Yeah, it'd
you
be
would
pretty
land.
hard to do. You would land.
You would land, and you would actually even shut down, and then swap.
Switch,
But where this could be done with two pilots is that if somebody's getting their CFI, one pilot could be learning how to land from the right seat,
right.
and as a CFI, so they're building hours or landings in a right seat, and that's a single pilot.
Yeah, CFI would be in the right seat,
Yeah,
correct?
exactly right.
Okay.
And so that's where, and I'm getting my commercial license, and people are, that's how you can split time, save money. So it would be the same aircraft. So when you see FlightAware, I mean, I'm a member of the Fly Safe Coalition, and I'm on the website and I see it all the time. And one of the main complaints is they say, it's the aerodynamics single plane, and it has 10 laps, but there's no way of knowing whether or not it's the same plane, and so they keep referring to the same tail number. But it may not be the same.
But it's a small flight school. You do not have a lot of students over there, and they have limited aircraft. I think they only have one or two, correct?
They have 3 and they're getting more.
Okay.
Yeah, they're getting, yeah. I mean,
But no one would do 10 touch and goes, a single pilot, would they?
I think that's so egregious, especially since we as this body is constantly reminding at flight school, don't do that.
Mhm.
It would be hard for me to believe that they would just completely disavow. I'd say, oh, I do think, and the reason that this per pilot add-on was put here was specifically to address that what the public is seeing is they go to FlightAware and they see they see a single tail number and they see 10 touch and goes. But when we call over to the flight school, they're like, well, we tell them they can only do 4, but there could be multiple pilots in there. It could be they've landed and they
Switched out
Yeah,
and gone up again. Okay. Well, the FAA has said we can't use a stick, for this. But we really haven't explored carrots we could use. I know some airports, Truckee Tahoe, I believe, will give a break on hangar rentals if you agree to follow their voluntary program. So maybe there's other things we can look at in air service noise to add a few more carrots to this. But we've been talking about both these things for 3 hours. I think we need to come to some resolution here, so I'll entertain a motion.
Can I, just before you do, just read the changes we have to the resolution first?
Okay,
so that I
please.
Understand the hours. Are we keeping them at 23 to 7 or midnight to 5? That's the only one I want to make sure I'm clear on. What is the direction in the resolution?
I am advocating for midnight to 5 because otherwise I just think we're just making more work for everybody. And although it's not a hard, fast rule, if I'm irritated and I'm going to look this up, I'm going to be in your face all the time saying that it's 11 to 7 and XYZ took off or landed outside of those hours. And
Yeah.
I mean, I hear it too. I'm not so far away from the airport that I don't hear. I hear them sometimes. But I also know that if somebody's coming in from somewhere and it's 11:30 at night, I sure would like to be able to land and not have to go to well, I guess you can't go to San Jose, go to San Francisco or Fresno or someplace to land. So I really believe we need to be common sense with this and understand how we're operating and what makes more sense. So
Yeah, I agree. I know I don't like getting up 5 o'clock in the morning to travel anywhere, but if I have to, I do it. But usually there's a reason. And like what you're saying, John, it's safety a lot of times. And where you're going to and making everything work. So
I don't disagree with the safety comment. In fact, I wholeheartedly agree with it. But I think the purpose of this document is we're saying, hey, please be good neighbors. Pilot community, please be good neighbors. Be conscious of the fact that, we are right in the middle of a community. And for people with young kids, for older folks, I think midnight is really late. I think 5 a.m. is really early. And I recognize that there are times where you have to do that, and that falls outside, in my minds, the bounds of what we are saying. Please, as a good neighbor, respect this time. I think 7 a.m. to 11, in terms of what a general ask is not outside the bounds of what's respectful within a community, knowing that there's going to be times where pilots have to deviate from that for safety. And
do we
that's just
say
where I
that?
come down. I'm sorry?
Do we say that somewhere in this document? If we adopt that time frame, 7 to 11?
11 to 7.
Well, I'm saying it's okay 7 to 11, but you're saying no flying between 7 and 11 is
No, we're saying 11 PM to 7 AM.
no flying.
Well, that's what we're saying is
No
our
flying, no
voluntary
landing.
non-operational hours.
Yeah.
Mhm.
okay, so staff gave us 2 times and one was
Our
handed to
recommendation.
us today. Why did you come up with midnight to 5 on the second thing that came to us today and it wasn't on the resolution that was given to us? Is it because you went back and looked at the operations that
Which-
start at 5 and go to midnight?
That is what was, so staff made some edits. Scott was working on another piece. I think they just didn't both come together at the end. So that is where we're at. I would say that yes, what is on the Exhibit A is what we've had on. What's on the resolution was a holdover from some of the old components.
Okay.
So our recommendation is the midnight to 5.
So given the current operations at this airport, midnight to 5 makes more sense for the current operations of this airport as they are right now, with the type of airlines that we have, where they're going, the demand from the public of going east, the demand from some of our private pilots who go east and fly through
Desert.
deserts and that sort of thing. Okay, I'm just trying to be clear how we got
Yeah.
this.
If it's currently midnight to 5, then I say let's just continue what we've been doing.
Okay, and I agree with that.
It isn't midnight to 5 on our website right now?
I think it is, because that's what's on here, and we took this right from there.
I'm checking right now.
Okay.
I'm not.
Let me go through the others while I was checking. So in consideration of the resolution, we've made edits to the third whereas, where it will say the board has invited members of the public to present comments related to noise, air traffic, or other matters to come to the Air Carrier Service Marketing and Community Relations Committee to discuss those comments with the committee members and staff. So it's more broad than concerns. Okay.
Sounds good.
The last one, the second would be to now therefore number 2D, nighttime voluntary non-operational hours instead of curfew to match what we have. And we've decided, waiting on the hours, we'll fix that in a second.
Or maybe not match.
And then the third is on item 3. Staff shall distribute its voluntary noise management criteria and materials to pilots, community stakeholders, and in all district communications related to this matter on a routine and regular basis.
Perfect.
The website currently shows midnight to 5.
It does.
So also, wasn't there, we talked about the 3, the hours in the, what the heck is it? The hours in Exhibit A, which was, we were going to go to 2200, correct?
Yes.
And so Exhibit A, yes. So resolution is what has been done then. So when it will D, nighttime voluntary non-operational hours, midnight to 5.
But he's talking about the
Yep.
touch and go practice operations that would go to 2200.
So, yep.
And,
That's
and
the only other edit that we're making on Exhibit A.
were we going to also mention either an exemption or at least a connection to currency, meaning that that this is currency, like pilot currency? I forget. That was I thought was a really nice.
Thing for that under touch and go operations.
Yeah,
Operations
touch and go to
related
maintain currency.
Yeah.
to maintain current or for certification are permitted.
I liked whatever that language was before.
Okay.
We had discussed something related to the changing of the time in terms of changing sunset.
Yeah, and I think we just decided 2200 is
Just flat instead?
Yeah, I think that's easier. Is
Okay. Well, everybody's seen how the sausage is made now, and it's not pretty, but I think we're ready to go.
I'd like to then make a motion that we adopt Resolution 1901,
1910.
1910, with, do I want to list all those things or just say all of those changes that we just
Yeah,
described?
all the aforementioned
Yeah,
amendments.
okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call, please.
Director Amati,
No.
Director Gagliardi,
Aye.
Director Leffel,
Yes.
Chair Miller.
Yes. Okay, that passes by the skin of its teeth. Let's go on to item G3, Resolution 1911, authorizing the approving of a sponsored payment letter for legal services.
This is related to the replacement terminal and the plan of finance. So I'll ask Mark to take that.
Thank you for sticking with us, Mark.
Happy to be here. Happy to be here. So just,
So, public comment? Oh, you know what? We didn't do.
Oh, we did not. No, we did.
Yes, we
Yeah,
did.
we did. We did
Yes, we
public
did.
comment.
I'll put out an email.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, we did do public comment. So, okay, go ahead, Mark.
so just to remind the board of our process on the financing of the replacement terminal project, we're going to be and are have to this date and will in the future secure federal grants. We will borrow money under a revenue bond program. And we're also going to borrow money, hopefully under the TIFIA loan program from the Build America Bureau. And as we've discussed previously, the TIFIA loan program will provide the airport the lowest cost of borrowing under monies that are borrowed. Of course, grant money is interest free. So in this process for the TIFIA loan program, we went through their process, which is called a letter for interest, saying that we would like to be considered for the program. That letter of interest was submitted in December of last year. Our project was evaluated. We also submitted our indicative credit rating. And so based on all those criteria, the Bureau determined that they wanted to move our project forward in their creditworthiness program. So part of
Good job.
yes, and that's very significant. So so the next part, so in the letter of interest that we submitted previously to the Bureau, there is a stipulation basically that the borrower pays the lender's legal fees. And the stipulation is actually a little expanded. It's termed legal and financial. And so I'll take you through those two pieces. So typical for every loan that I've been involved with, the borrower pays the lender's legal fees. So in this case, the Bureau has, they put the legal fees process out to an RFP, and they selected Norton Rose as their preferred lender counsel for the transaction. So this letter in front of us asks us to basically agree to pay Norton Rose's legal fees. And also in our discussions with the Bureau, they informed us as to what would be considered the financial fee. Their fee is capped at $160,770. So normally we would bring to the board an arrangement or an agreement on a not to exceed basis. This agreement doesn't allow for that. So it's basically based on billable time. We did ask the Bureau to come back to us with their best estimate of what legal fees would be, based mostly in part with having done the TIFIA loan with Sacramento Airport, who I believe also used, Norton Rose was the legal or transaction counsel on as well. So their estimate was $500,000. That is a amount that's going to be based on actual billable time as we progress through the transaction, and we'll be beginning those billings on a monthly basis. This does not obligate us beyond the billable time incurred to be paid, but it is our hope that that those billable times will lead us to the formal application and then the actual closing of the TIFIA transaction. So this is an integral part of progressing on the TIFIA loan closing that we are planning for, and is a key part of our plan of financing for the replacement terminal complex. And if you take these legal fees and the Bureau's financial fees, that is less than the 700,000 of fees that was in the budget that we just talked about in terms of outside transaction fees for the TIFIA loan. So it's within those boundaries. We did discuss this in detail in Finance Committee 2 days ago, and be happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Okay, questions only, no comments. We'll start down with Director Gaglione.
No.
Public comment?
Okay, public comment. Any member of the public, which we have lost, it appears, but anybody wishing to make a comment?
No one online.
Okay. Okay, quickly, any questions?
None.
Okay, we'll have one more round for comments. Questions, Director Leffel?
No, I don't have any questions. And we talked about this thoroughly in finance, and we were in concurrence that this should go forward.
Thank you. Director Monte?
No questions.
Okay, no member of the public, so we've already had a public comment. We'll start down here again. Any comments?
No, no comments.
Comments, Director Leffel?
No, I love that it's under the 700,000, so it's what we need to do.
Director Amati?
Yeah, I would also just refer the public back to the previous assessment that Mr. Wilson did, showing that this financial structure, while it does have some upfront costs to it, should save us $1 million annually over the course of the term of the loan. And so I am very much in support of this.
Excellent.
Yeah. Well, I did have a question. You made the comment, grants were interest-free. I was hoping grants are free.
Well, they're completely free.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
As opposed to debt, which
Yeah,
has an interest clock on it.
Okay. Very good. A motion?
I would move that we approve resolution number 1911.
Seconded.
Read it?
No.
Good.
Okay, we have a first and a second by Director Amati, so roll call.
Director Amati,
Aye.
Director Gaglione.
Aye.
Director Leffel,
Yes.
Chair Miller.
Yes. Okay, very good. Moving right along. Item number 4, Resolution 1912.
Yes, so you have in front of you Resolution 1912, which is granting, it is an amendment to a utility easement, so it's a easement relocation agreement with PG&E. If you look at the agreement itself and you go to the page that shows the map on the back of it, it'll show you exactly why. So it shows the terminal location, and it shows where the easement is currently in the dotted line that is pointing to. And you'll see that that gas line goes right in the footprint of our existing building. So that has been relocated. It isn't active yet. We're waiting on the final from PG&E, but it has been put in place at the moment. And this easement will adjust in the easement the location of it. So it just updates the location to be where you see on that, the new dotted, big black dotted line at the strip B new location of the gas main. So this is part of the terminal project. This is part of what the Landside Auto has been working on. And as I said, they are waiting for the final from PG&E. PG&E has been out and inspected it and then provided us with this easement language. So with that, we request that you consider Resolution 1912 and accept this relocation of the easement. Any questions? Happy to answer them.
Any public comment? Don't see anybody in the public and nobody's here. Well, we have staff members. I thank you for not having comment. Okay, let's open it up. We'll start down here, Director Monti.
Thank you. Just in terms of the environmental impact for this, does the EIR for the terminal project and the landside work cover this?
The EIR and the NEPA document, yes, both cover all of the components of the safety enhancement project.
Fantastic. No other questions.
Okay, very good. Director Leffel.
I have no questions.
Director Gaglione.
None, but I'm just curious that it's a different format than is this PG&E's?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, it is their standard format.
Got it. And we have to accept
We
theirs.
have to
like-
accept it. Yep.
Got it.
Once it's approved, then we get it signed and notarized and sent, and then it gets recorded.
And will we ever have to come back and put our own resolution in our format and just attach this as RADA? I'm just,
No.
this is
just-
again,
no,
this is all just
all
information.
Easements have been done this way.
All right,
yeah.
okay.
So we have quite a
All right.
few.
N-
utility
Nothing
easements.
else.
Okay, and I have no questions. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve resolution number 1912, granting a utility easement to PG&E for the gas line relocation in support of the replacement terminal project.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Director Gagliani. Roll call, please.
Director Amati,
Aye.
Director Gagliardi,
Aye.
Director Leffel,
Yes.
Chair Miller.
Yes. Okay, item number 5, presentation. So that means nothing we have to do except listen.
Nope.
Update the Safety Hansen
Yep,
program.
Chair. Yes, so I've asked our project managers, Dan and Brian, to come in now that we are starting to wrap up on the ramp and ramp up on the terminal and the land side. We want to give you kind of a 3-month look ahead on where we're going, a little bit of where we've been, and now where we're going for the next 3 months. And we'll continue to put these on the agenda going forward in some type of a cadence when we really have some significant pieces to share with you. So Brian and Dan.
Good morning. As Chris mentioned, this is going to be a very brief 3-month look ahead at the commercial apron, the terminal land side on-site construction project, and then also the replacement terminal. So with that, I'll finish the first portion of it.
All right, so for the commercial apron project, we are working now on what we've identified as work areas D and E, which incorporate taxway Juliet and taxway Kilo construction and demolition. And then as well as starting tomorrow, we are paving. So this time we've spent working contractor for a path forward. So paving operating again tomorrow as we look forward to closing out this project in August of next month, which includes the RTR cable, which is the remote transmitter receiver that connects the tower to the navigational aids that pilots and users use. And that would be the last step to be done with the apron project. So just to give an update as to what we're doing with Taxway Juliet, on the left is before, and if you look outside, the lines are open. You'd see what they're currently working on is Taxway Juliet, which is the redesign as instructed by FAA, what we call the fillet, and now to the hourglass. So you can see Taxway Juliet taking its new form and shape that they're currently working on overnight. And then Taxway Kilo, well, used to be Kilo on the left, and what Kilo looks like now. And then when it's complete, will be completely removed, asphalt, and replaced with grinding, so it's a complete item.
There will,
Yeah, one of the reasons and Kilo's being removed because of where the new commercial apron will be in its proximity, so it will not allow for direct access onto the runway. So that was one of the requirements, is that Kilo be completely removed and Juliet be reconfigured so that it meets the standards.
Kilo's
FAA standards.
confusing. I mean, it's a confusing text. So that it'll be gone.
It'll be gone.
Kilo's
It's like on the
Yes.
south side of 2A West. So if you
Yeah,
if you
right.
recall what we did with Taxway, have the same.
So when, so GA lands on 28 left, they have to taxi all the way to Gulf, in order to get, and they're on the north side. In order for them to cross 28 right, they have to go all the way to the, where do they cross over 28 right?
They could, Kilo on the north side of 2A left is still.
Oh, it's still there.
It's still there.
All right.
Kilo at Bravo remains. It's just Kilo at
Oh,
Alpha. that goes
okay.
away.
So, yeah, okay. So Kilo at, or it's Kilo at Charlie, right? It's Kilo at Charlie.
Kilo Charlie.
Yeah.
Right. Kilo Charlie, Kilo Bravo.
Kilo at Charlie is the one that's confusing. So, okay. All right. Sorry, I don't mean to derail that.
Yeah. And then moving forward, we're beginning the on-site construction to be on the inside portion of it. The next 3 months, you'll start seeing much more activity from auto and their subcontractors. This month, we're hoping to finalize city permits for tree removal and grading. And then once that's complete, you'll also, based on the easement that you just approved, Preston Pipeline will come in and complete the connection with PG&E for the gas line relocation. Then next month in August, we're hoping that we'll move into the removal of the utilities that are in the footprint. So in addition to the gas line, we have the RTR cable. So once it's relocated, we can remove the current system as well as a water line that runs through the footprint. And those 3 items will be removed and we execution of full long-term lot in phase 1. Phase 1, which is the orange portion, we'll begin expanding that footprint of the parking structure, the parking lot, and then begin to expand it. And once that is complete with the grading and paving, we'll be able to open that portion of the project. And that is where we stand for the land side.
All right, back to for the terminal. We've been working very hard behind the scenes on financials. We're tightening up the budget, so we're expected to get the GMP 1.5, which is the additional bid packages that Hensel Phelps is working on. And so as we get closer to that final number, bids do come in, we'll have a much clearer picture of costs for the building. And then moving into August, HP will start being on site. So they've put a trailer out there now, and in August, they're really going to be coming on full steam in preparation for September, which will actually see our construction activities begin, including the shoring installation, earthwork grading, and soil treatment as the starts to.
And as you can see, all of these are the ramp project, and then you saw part of it again in the next. So it has been a lot of communication between all 3 contractors working together, having shared meetings, really making sure that we're not missing a corner, we're not missing a utility, we're not missing something in the plans, and that we've identified whose responsibility it is throughout the project for each of the components. So that's been a lot of back and forth and a lot of communications that have continued to happen between the project managers and the project team, and with Kinley Horn's assistance as well. So right now, no big construction till after we get through the summer travel, but then after summer travel, we will start to see some significant construction, and we'll be able to update it a little bit more once we really finish up that RTR cable that they've talked about, which is key. It's a communication cable for FAA. So once that's completed and the gas line component is completed, then they can really start in earnest to start the terminal and the rest of the components. And by then the batch plant should be off site here, and we'll be able to start doing parking lots as well. So all working together, all moving forward again. And there'll be a lot of construction happening, and we'll be very busy. Happy to answer questions.
Okay, no member of the public out there, so we will start over here, Director Amati.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't have any questions. I just wanted to thank the staff for the work that you're doing on these projects. There's so much coordination that you are all working through, and I just want to say how appreciative I am of clearly the diligence that you're putting into this project. And so I wanted to say thank you to you and all of your staff on the work that you're doing on this. I would just ask that this presentation, if you don't mind emailing it to the board, because I don't think that was included in our packet. So if you don't mind sending that, that's all I got.
Thank you, Director Leffel.
A couple of things. So Hensel Phelps put a trailer on. How are we coming on the front building at 2801?
That is moving quickly.
Yeah, it's moving. Still on track. We hope the early August completion.
Thank you.
Painter should be in there now.
Okay, good. Then roundabout, is that integral to part of this?
Garden Road, Olmsted, Fred Kane Drive intersection. So both of the plans are in for review with the city. We are further along on the onsite because it's a little less cumbersome in their review. But we also have comments back on the offsite. And again, not sure when that's going to be factored into the schedule. It really is somewhat related to when we get the plans back, but we also don't want to start that construction until after we've had all the heavy deliveries. We don't want to put in something brand new and then bring in steel over it or other components. Try to factor it into the schedule when it seems that it's appropriate that we've gotten most of our heavy deliveries in before we do something new.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And then do we have a PG&E person assigned yet?
We do.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
We have a number of people that we're working with and they've been very, very responsive.
Okay, so that's,
Okay, thank you. Director Gaglione?
First of all, I just want to echo what Director Amati said. I think both of us have an appreciation for what you guys do because we've probably been on a lot of really bad projects and this is just amazing. I mean, how the coordination that you guys are doing is just phenomenal. So that's that. That GMP, that when we get that bid, that's a gating item for us for our plan of finance, correct? We need, and is that on schedule, ahead of schedule? Where are we?
It's on schedule for the next, and then there'll be one final one after. So we plan on 3 different GMPs. This next one is the bigger one. They do have the bids back in. They haven't given us the final numbers. They're validating, making sure all the none of the contractors, subcontractors missed anything yet, but it is under the estimate. So that's a good thing to know at the moment, is that it is under what they were holding for all of those components. So
that's good.
That's good.
But also we don't want to show that it's cheaper, right? Like we still want, because we're going for higher numbers, right? I mean, we have to thread that needle.
We need them to come down because we also have our soft cost on top of it. So we do need them to be down from where they were at the 104.
But and we will be able to feather in to be able to make our ultimate.
Yes.
All right.
I would also just add, one of the things that we didn't share though is in permitting, besides being within the city, going to the city, PG&E, we've also started our communications with the water district as well. And that's going very well too. So we will have our water permits here as well in the near future.
Awesome. Just great. Very good. Excellent. You guys.
and Chris, I think you shared in finance with Jonathan and me that the QTA has been hooked up and is now running. So we should see a reduction in our CalAm bill because we're starting to use our own well water. So just,
Yeah, Brian, want to speak to that? Just when did that go live?
Went live earlier this month, and it's very well.
good. Good news.
Anything else? So in that regard, are we billing them for well water or okay. So they pay us now, so we got income.
Oh, for well water, I'm sorry. No, we were billing them for CalAm water. So they will not, and I don't believe we'll be billing them for well because it was done with CFCs. So the
Okay,
project was funded.
that's right. We
with
used
the
their money.
project.
Okay.
Mm.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, they paid for it.
Yeah. That was good. And again, good work echoing everything we've heard here. So thank all of you for all your hard work. I had one question on the ramp. We had some concerns over the cement hardness or quality. Has that been resolved?
That's actually the subject of a discussion that we're going to have in closed session.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad no one's here to hear that question. Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. That's it. Requires no action from us. So consider that report received. Let's move quickly on to board reports. Does anybody have any questions concerning reports by staff? Strictly the staff, then we'll go into our committee reports real quickly. Nobody on the on the board? Okay.
I'm sorry, I did have a couple quick questions on the department reports.
Okay, go ahead.
On jumping all the way to the police reports, page 2 of 6.
I love reading.
There were a couple falls that we had, item 5 and item 12. And last month we had talked about parking and parking for folks who had mobility issues. And I know council, you had mentioned that there were discussions between you and Director Morello, and just wanted to see what's the latest on parking and just this kind of interim situation that we have with construction activity and all of that. Excuse me.
So we are working with Republic Parking. Staff is working with Republic Parking to try and resolve some of these issues.
Well, I think he's talking, I want to go back, Director Money, you're talking about the ADA component that we talked about at the last meeting, or?
So there's two things I think that are hand in hand. One was that there were discussions about charges in the short-term lot for folks with the mobility issues, and then kind of what were we doing to help make folks aware that that was available to them. So that is one issue that we had discussed last month. And then previously, we had also discussed that there are challenges for folks who park in the farther lot in terms of getting here because of the construction work. And so the two separate things, I think.
Okay. So dealing with the second one, there is an acknowledgement that we don't have a current ADA accessible path during the construction from the long-term lot, which is why we're allowing people to park in the short-term lot, but then receive the discount that had they parked in the long-term lot. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So that's one issue. And we're working to try and make sure that pathways are open for passenger travel from the long-term lot to the current terminal and not being interrupted by construction traffic. As it relates to the charging issue, if under the contract with Republic Parking, they are required to be there from before the first plane lands until after the last plane leaves. And if there's someone that's not there, then we'll go ahead and take that information and contact Republic Parking and communicate with them. They need to be there during that period of time.
So that they can ensure that the folks who are leaving are paying that long-term rate
Discounted
from
rate.
the short-term lot.
Correct.
Okay.
And that is, they do have a paper on their booth that says that, but of course at night when it's dark, it's a little hard to see.
Right.
But we've also talked about making sure that the call button, that where that goes to, they know what to tell the people as well. So we've worked with Republic to make sure that if they were using the call button for help, if they happen to not be there and can't get someone, then that operator knows what to tell them as well too. So it's another level.
And I'm not aware, but is there temporary lighting for the pathway from there to here at night? Okay.
Yep, there is.
The only other comment was
It's out here. So this fall that we are talking about was in front of the building.
that was here. Oh, from the description, I thought it was at the parking. The only other thing that I was wondering, item 44, there was a gate or a chain that was broken. The chain to the exit gate was broken. Is that something that we were able to get resolved right away?
Item number 44 relates to mod storage.
Chain to exit, yes. Chain to exit gate was broken and subjects were gone upon arrival.
That would be mod storage's.
So that's
That's
outside of our purview then.
It's within it is our tenant.
Right.
So there is a tenant there, but it's the tenant's responsibility to maintain that, but our police did go over and help. So if there are issues there, the police do respond because it's on airport property.
Got it. So mod storage fixed the issue. And then I was just wondering if we knew what the FBI investigation was related to or not. No. All right.
That's all I had.
Okay. Let's go on then to standing committees, finance, anything to report that what?
Nope.
Okay,
We did start to take a look at all of our policy and procedures on all financial pieces, and we just did the first glance through. So we'll come back in August or September with our recommendations to the board.
very good. Okay, air service, anything to report out on that?
No, we covered it.
Yeah, we covered most of it. Staff will be coming back to us with a incentive program. That will be next month or the month after. When do you?
August, we should have the air carrier incentive program
Okay.
ready for your potential approval in August.
Okay. We will look for that. Okay, lease. Dino's not here, so nothing new to report out of lease other than we're entering into contract negotiations with some of our tenants, including our lawyer friends at Fenton and Keller. Anything else we should report out, Mark, that you recall?
No, I think we're super staged. So they're
7, yeah.
So they're in our key, but we're nowhere.
Mark your microphone, please, because this is being recorded.
Yeah, I mean, we've just received a letter from them indicating that they'd like to renew their lease, and we have to evaluate it, and we have our own process to go through. So super early.
And on our hangar, our commercial hangar across the way, any updates on that? I know we talked about.
Well, we did have a showing on Monday of a party that was potentially interested in buying it, subject to our ground lease. So we had a good showing, and we'll just wait to hear back what his real interest level is.
So if you want this, John, you better act quick. You could use that 100 by 100. We've got one on the hook right now, so.
I will report though that the new hangar lease rate isn't enacted, and we are paying it.
Okay, but we're still not at market right now. We got a couple years before we're at market.
Correct.
Okay.
The good news is that it's a higher rate. So it's substantial. I mean, it goes up,
A goodly amount. Okay.
Exactly. It'll be at market very, very quickly.
Okay, very good. Ad hoc committee, personnel, nothing new to report. The recruitment closes on the 20th, so that is coming up. Not a lot of candidates the last time I talked to them. Do you have anything to add to that, Scott?
No,
We
sir,
will
no.
keep you posted.
Yeah, other than we did get a revised brochure out that included some of the real estate.
Yes, concerns.
Yeah, concerns and some of the real estate offerings that the board approved.
Including our forgivable loan that we will give them.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, very good. Local jurisdiction liaison, Leffel and Pitt.
We are in discussions with Delray Oaks to set up a meeting with them. So that's where we're at.
Very good. And then local agency formation?
We did not meet this month, and I believe that we'll probably cancel the meeting we don't meet in July, and it looks like there will not be anything of substance to go over in August, so I don't believe we'll have a meeting till September.
Okay. Regional taxi, Dino Pick. They only have one meeting a year. Dino's been waiting for that meeting to happen, but then the call went out, the flag was raised, the bat signal lit, but he was in Istanbul and unable to attend. Then we found out that I'd never appointed an alternate, so I ran out of the air service meeting here and attended that. They only meet once a year. The meeting would have been 20 minutes, but I was asking a lot of questions. So it went to 45 minutes, at much regret to the other people in the room. But quickly, no incidents to report, no drug test violations, 69 driver renewals, 110 new driver permits were issued. Have we seen any new driver permits here or?
It'll be in the report. We usually, it should be in the report. It shows when we re-up the permits, which is July 1. So I don't know if we have any new entrants, but you can see how many permits were issued.
Well, this is June's. So this is June's report.
But it goes to, people may do it. in
Okay, if you
June.
can find that, let us know. 3 new companies have come online, VIP Taxi with 2 cars. Cal Taxi, that was October of last year. VIP was August, 2 cars. Cal Taxi, 13 cars. And Salinas Taxi, 11 vehicles. So they are, and that was in October of last year too. Total of 101 vehicles out there, but it looks like only 79 driver permits. So you do the math. So how are we doing on permitted drivers here? Okay, no hurry.
You can get to that.
Okay, sounds good. They just reminded me that drivers are licensed by cities, or in our case, the airport, and the RTA license the companies. That's all I have to report on that. Transportation agency, about the only thing, we talked a lot about 156. They got some money to move ahead with the interchange out there, which will be part of the new freeway project there. Still working on signalizing, improving Highway 68 corridor. That will be sometime in September, November-ish before that is done. Special Districts Liaison, Director Leffel.
We met actually last night, and our presentation was one that Director Amati had asked for, which was on the fire service throughout the county. And Chief Nunez did a really good job of talking about how all of the departments are interrelated and how they're covering for each other, how they're working with each other, how they're working on a lot of fire preventative measures and working hard to try to get ahead of some of the things. I don't know if you all saw, there were 2 fires on Robinson Canyon Road and another one out in Carmel Valley last week. And both of those were quickly put out by cooperation between 2 fire departments, Monterey Regional and CAL FIRE. So they're working hard. They also talked about last year, they had I think it was about 1,000-acre fire down near Lockwood. And they went in and they cut some really big fire breaks this year. And interestingly enough, a vehicle stopped and was on fire right there, and the fire break stopped it, and it did not spread like it did last year. So they're really trying hard to be smart and out in front of it. We did talk about a couple of things, and I'm just going to share them with you all because I think it's important. There's something called a KNOX, K-N-O-X box that you can put on your commercial buildings, or you can put it on your home. It has a universal key, and when the police or fire see that, that is how they can enter your home without hammering down your front door or your garage door or whatever, in case a fire alarm's going off or someone has reported something and you're not home. So just, I think FYI, They talked about watch duty, the fire app that you can have and how effective that is being. And they were saying that sometimes they see on that app where a fire has started prior to receiving anything from dispatch. So that network of individuals who's reporting to watch duty is real on it, and they're, I would say, to put on. They said they did 72 organizational community neighborhood meetings last year. They're going to do a lot more. And so they were saying that if you want to have one scheduled for someplace, if your local jurisdiction is not doing it, they're happy to come in, that they want everybody to be aware of it. And they said they had 66,000 calls last year that they had to respond to. So that's just a crazy amount of calls. That's not in the cities, that's in the county unincorporated area. So I think also then we talked about some bills that are not so good for any of us. One is a Brown Act amendment that has crazy changes for board meetings. It will hit hard with districts or jurisdictions that have over 200,000 population, which does not impact us, but it does impact a lot of our neighbors. Mosquito abatement districts are probably the one that they are pointing out statewide, where sometimes it's a staff of 1 or 2 people, but they have all these new rules that would go on them that it just makes it impossible financially that they'll ever be able to keep up with it. So that was one. One is AB 339, which also doesn't really impact us, but it is that if you have anybody within your network, within your population of employment that can do a service, that you are not allowed to go outside for third-party help. So for instance, if someone had a very large network and they had someone who could do what like Jonathan does in that network, that they would not be allowed to go out. And this one is,
Unions, right?
this union, it's union driven, and it has some really far implications on all kinds of third party vendors and workers. So there was nothing that was just on us. A lot of it was things that are either impactful for larger districts, mostly. I that they are now, because association of districts, that there is a really good opportunity now, which again, it doesn't impact us very much, but there's just a whole call out now for parks and recreation on a national level of all the grants that are available. So they're starting now to gather up federal grants and nationwide grants and trickle them down into the smaller districts that they can take advantage of it, which is nice if you have just a small staff. You do not have the capacity to scour constantly for what grants are out there. So talked about, the conference in the end of August here in the city of Monterey, which is actually a very good conference, and we always seem to learn. They bring in some really good experts from around the state to share ideas and best practices. So October 7th is our next meeting. And I did advise Chris that I would talk to you about possibly presenting on all the updates here at the airport, because that should be a good timing for us, that we know more about our financing and be able to show some pictures of what's going forward. So did I miss anything?
They talked about the fake invoice that came from LAFCO to the
Region
Waste Management District. So yeah, be aware that there was a local incident where somebody sent a follow-up LAFCO bill, but going to a different bank account. And I think they paid it, or no, the bank caught it.
So
They all.
Iowa's Waste Management District has the check matching and invoice matching positive. And so what happened was they had it and their bank caught it saying, hey, it looks like you already paid this. Are you, and this is a different routing number. And so they caught it, but the invoice actually comes from the auditor controller. It does not come out of LAFCO. LAFCO tells auditor controller to do the billing. So whether or not the infiltration was either through the waste management email system where they saw there had been an invoice, or whether it was auditor controller, but I mean, it's pretty specific. You would know as small as our operation is if you got two bills from LAFCO for the same amount. But anyway, so they just asked everybody to go back and take a look and make sure they didn't double pay it, because if they did, the second one was not accurate. And they were clever. They did second billing, second invoice, reminder, blah, blah. So it was
Looked very official.
very official, very well done. So anyway, that
And the Brown Act actually started out supporting that, and then it got lumped in with another piece of legislation, so something they were supporting, now they're fighting again. So that's Sacramento. And lastly, on the doors, someone who has witnessed fire departments forcing entry into a house, it is not pretty. They use a crowbar. They practice at this, and they're very good. Seconds, your door is ruined. Your what did you say your door cost?
$50,000.
$50,000. That could be gone in one few minutes. Just if you put one of those lockbox on, that's what I plan on doing. Okay, and the Association of Monterey Bay Area Governments.
We have not, we meet tonight.
Okay. Very good. And I gave a conference report at last month's meeting, so no one's gone to any new conferences, I don't think. So nothing to report there. And I think we're running into closed session right now.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Directors, your mics.
We are back into open session. It is 12:22.
Mr. Chair,
Excuse me. Hello, welcome back to the Monterey Peninsula Airport District Board meeting. It is 12:22. We have nothing to report out. No action taken in closed session. So next item up is, somebody help me, I put my agenda. Future agenda items. So we don't have anything pending, do we?
Nothing pending.
Okay. Does anybody wish to suggest something?
It's not an agenda item, but I do want to make sure that next month that the tech Zoom issue, I don't know if we need to get, a permanent thin PC installed in here that is just constantly the one that we're using for the Zoom, but if we can avoid having.
What happened, yeah.
Yeah, just make sure that we're able to fix that.
Agreed.
Okay.
I will just say, we did also have a power outage here yesterday, and when that happens, we need to reboot the system, and we forgot to do that too. So it's just.
Combination of things.
That's a combination, but we will make sure when we have a power outage that we reboot.
Reboot, okay.
Yeah, just needs.
Very good. Okay, I don't think there's anything else on the agenda, is there? So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 12:23.
Do an adjournment.
Yeah, but I like